Your chair.
Recording in progress.
Good evening. I'll call to order this August 13th, 2024 Town Plan and Zoning Commission meeting. We'll start with our meeting minutes from July 23rd, 2024. Commissioner Corsillo is not here. Commissioner Pikowski, you're up. Be on everything?
Yes.
Thank you. So you'll be sitting in. May I have a motion on the minutes? Commissioner Harrison.
I'll make a motion to pass the minutes from our last meeting.
Me.
Sorry, I didn't mean to have a side conversation, but because I wasn't there, should we have?
Yeah. Did you listen to the video?
I did, yes.
Yeah, then you're
Okay, so then I'm okay, okay.
Yeah, you're fine. May I have a second? Motion to approve the minutes. Levy seconds. Commissioner Harrison.
Nope, they look good to me. Thank you.
Commissioner Levy.
Fine to me.
Commissioner Braun, are you there?
I'm voting yes.
I can't see her on the.
She's only on the phone.
Oh, she's only on the phone.
Can you hear
That's fine,
me?
bro. I can hear you. I just didn't know you were just on the phone, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Any comments or further comments or questions from the commission on the minutes, or can we put this to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. 6 hands. Commissioner Braun, do you approve the minutes?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. All right, next items in section 2 are moving to public hearing. I'll talk quickly to Mr. Wentz. I'm gonna move them en masse. Go through one, they seem to be straightforward. But the first one, zoning regulation amendment, application of Royal Homes LLC to amend section 5.1 regarding middle housing opportunity for B zones. And B 222 Stilson Road, zoning compliance application of Paul and Mary Binamy for a 24-unit residential building pursuant to section 830G of the Connecticut General Statutes and the design residential. 4180 Black Rock Turnpike, application of 4180 Black Rock Turnpike LLC to establish a design commercial district on land presently zoned AAA and special permit pertaining to a proposed parking lot expansion. 265 Autumn Ridge Road, special permit application of Christopher Rosa for excavation fill in the R3 zone. Whereas, 2179, the last item, E 2179, 2199 Post Road, 29 Fairfield Place, application of Sunshine Acquisitions LLC to establish a center design business district on land presently zoned design commercial district zoning regulation amendments in sections 12.3, 12.7, 25.7, 28.6, 28, 12, and 31.2.16, and special permit and coastal site plan pertaining to proposed mixed-use commercial residential buildings. So that's 5 items that are being recommended for public hearing. I called them together because they're pretty straightforward. I think each of them is going to require a public hearing. I'll ask Mr. Went, these require public hearings?
Yes, sir.
Nothing more that needs to be, we need to address individually?
I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has anything on any of these, but I have nothing at this point to add.
Just to move things a little quicker. May I have a motion on these 5 items? Commissioner Harrison.
I'll make a motion to recommend to a public hearing for our regulations. It's procedural.
Correct. Commissioner Pikowski seconds. And again, if you have questions on particular items, feel free to ask Mr. Wentz. Does any member have questions or comments?
I don't think we've seen any of the applications yet, right, in our.
No, there's a folder that's once we have a date scheduled, we put it in a dated folder, like today's date has all the applications. There's another folder under this listed as pending applications, where a couple of these, I know item E is already uploaded, not all of them have been uploaded.
Thank you.
So we recommend a public hearing. They haven't necessarily been set for a date yet.
Okay, thank you.
Comments, questions on?
I'm sorry, Mr.
Go ahead.
Chairman, these will all be in September or later, is the,
Likely scheduling, yes. Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry.
I know she's not feeling well, that's fine. Can we put this to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
I'm saying aye, Kathy.
They pass unanimously, all will be moved to a public hearing. Next item is old business, 3685 Black Rock Turnpike. Special exception application of Black Rock Church for a 958 square foot addition to an existing gathering room in the AA zone. Mr. Wendt.
okay, Mr. Chairman, Black Rock Church, formerly known as Black Rock Congregational Church, has been located on the subject property since the late 1960s. When the church outgrew its then facilities, a new church building was approved for construction in 2011. The current application seeks approval for a 958 square foot addition to an existing gathering room. As explained during the hearing, the main sanctuary has a seating capacity of 900. The gathering room is typically used for events that call for a more intimate space, such as funerals and weddings that do not draw the attendance necessitating the use of the main sanctuary. Such uses do not occur on Sundays when the main sanctuary is the venue for worship services. The original approval required a minimum of 220 parking spaces and 482 were provided. This proposed addition will eliminate 3 existing parking spaces. There will be some minor rerouting of the existing drainage lines, and new detention is being provided for the proposed addition. The relevant standard considerations for special exception are, number one is the type, character, and size and use of the buildings in harmony with and conform to the appropriate and orderly development of the town and neighborhood, and not hinder or discourage the use of adjacent property. 2 is the nature and location of the use in buildings or structures such that there's adequate access for fire protection. 3, are the streets serving the proposed use adequate to carry prospective traffic with provisions made for entering and leaving without creating undue hazard. 4, is the proposed use in compliance with the plan of conservation and development. That's all I have at this point, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Wendt. May I have a motion on this item, please? Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, I'd move to approve with a condition that the funerals and weddings not be that it not be used for funerals and weddings on Sundays. That would not prohibit the church from using it for other, gatherings and uses during the Sunday services, but something that would draw more people, we should make that a condition.
That was recommended by the applicant or suggested or proposed or agreed to, so that's. May I have a second? Harrison.
Yeah, I thought it met the standards to meet the special exception. I thought the design was really tastefully done, really nicely done, and it'll be a nice addition to the church. We didn't hear from any neighbors. I don't see any impact to the surrounding area. And I agree with the condition.
Commissioner Levy, anything?
Nothing further.
Harrison, you're all set. Other commission members?
On this one.
Oh, you're out on this one. Okay, so Commissioner Siebert, you're gonna be sitting in for Commissioner Ford.
Okay.
Right. Commissioner
I've got a
Randolph.
question of clarification.
Go ahead.
So no weddings or funerals at the same time that the services, or no on Sundays, or no weddings and funerals at all on Sundays?
I think it's the latter. Commissioner Levy,
That
correct?
was my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just a question.
Yeah, and just also, they did say that they could still utilize that area for other activities on Sundays, but just not for those.
Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, I mean, the condition basically avoid significant influx in the number of people coming and needing parking and so forth, as you would have with a large wedding or funeral. But church meetings and anything other use they may make of it with their congregants would of course be fine.
I have a question
Go ahead.
for Jim. I believe this did not add any impervious surface because it was basically being expanded into part of the parking lot. I drove by there and it just doesn't look like it would have any impact on the natural setting at all. Am I accurate in that? That's from my memory. I can't find my notes.
Yes, but having said that, they have accounted for detention as if it were being added as impervious
Okay.
surface.
Okay, thank you. So I'm in favor of this.
Further, very straightforward application, meets our criteria, very modest addition. To I think a good use for the area. We put this to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. 6 hands
In favor.
and an aye. So passes unanimously. Thank you. 1073 North Benson Road, special exception application of Fairfield College Preparatory School for additions and alterations. Arts and athletics in the AA zone. Commissioner Ford, are you up to speed on this?
I did have a
Well, before we get, I just want to make sure you're up to speed. We'll let them go in and then we'll get the motion on. Mr. Wen, please.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Fairfield Prep is proposing to demolish their existing gymnasium and build a new 2-story gymnasium and arts building with a net increase in building area of approximately 33,000 square feet. Due to the expanded footprint, there will be a net reduction of 20 parking spaces from the existing upper parking lot. The upper parking lot will be repaved and new fully cut off light poles are proposed at a height of 12 feet. The building is 40 feet in height to the roof deck with sloped parapet walls to screen the rooftop equipment from view. The relevant considerations for a special exception are the same 4 that I just read. It's the location, type, character, and size and use of the buildings in harmony with and conforming to the appropriate and orderly development of the town and neighborhood. 2 is the nature, location, use such that there's adequate access for fire protection. 3, streets serving the proposed use adequate to carry prospective traffic. And 4 is the proposed use in compliance with the POCD. That was it, Mr. Chairman.
May I have a motion on the item?
Like the motion.
Mr. Randolph, move to approve, I assume?
Yes, move to approve the application.
Thank you. Commissioner Levy seconds. Commissioner Randolph?
The presentation was complete. The engineering addressed the concerns of stormwater, design of the building, keeping with the adjacent buildings, and very thoughtfully done. Have any negative feedback from any of the neighbors at our last meeting, and the university seems to be open to any of our minor suggestions regarding landscaping, which I'm not going to make it as a condition, but they were open to any of our landscaping suggestions. So it was a thoughtful, professionally prepared presentation, and will be a positive addition to Fairfield Prep.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Commissioner Levy, then you, Commissioner Braun.
Just in addition, I've ridden through there a few times, and based on the evidence, the reduction of the 20 parking spaces, I don't think that'll present a problem since there's a significant amount of parking immediate adjacent to the proposed gym.
Thank you. Commissioner Braun, go ahead.
Yes, this is a question for both Jim and Commissioner Randolph. I'm trying to remember the conversation we had last time. Is this another one where the expansion is primarily into a parking lot, so there's not that much addition of impervious surface? And also, is there no net loss of trees, but we were asking sort of a recommendation to submit a landscaping plan?
The question that came up, should I answer that?
Let's start with Mr. Went, and then if you go ahead.
I think I agree with what you said. The landscaping is they're proposing 2 new trees in the interior of that parking lot. And they were asking your consideration to have the existing trees along the perimeter of the parking lot count as existing shade trees. But to your first part of that question, I would agree that there's not a significant amount of new impervious area.
And there's no net loss of trees by the construction.
I don't know that for
recall.
certain. I don't think there's gonna be any significant trees removed.
Yeah, my recollection was if there was a tree or two that was being taken down, it was going to be replaced. I just think it was one or two at best trees. But nothing, not like a major, well, not a big oak or sorts. I think it was smaller dogwoods-ish.
Was Commissioner Randolph's request for a recommendation to submit a landscaping plan, or I don't remember what that was exactly. Will that be part of the approval if we approve it?
Oh, no, what Commissioner Randolph had said was he wasn't gonna make that a recommendation of approval. He was just gonna note that they were receptive to us, to our request for additional landscaping and leave it at that. Right, Commissioner Randolph, he's nodding yes. I think that's fair. They were pretty receptive to it. I don't think we need to add more steps. There's not much where they can add anyways, but I think they had ideas where they were gonna place them.
Okay, thank you.
Further comments, questions? Commissioner Ford?
Briefly, I think it's a really nice design. Kids are gonna be lucky. I think it's a great addition for space. It's gonna enhance the educational experience. To Commissioner's broad point, Fairfield University usually does a very good job of screening, planting, and I can only assume they'll do the same here. I do remember, I think it's a net addition of trees, to be honest. I'm very familiar with the site, so I would approve the application. I would urge my fellow commissioners to do so also.
I mean, pretty straightforward application again. It's gonna be on the campus. No objections from the university or their neighbors. It's meets all our requirements in harmony. No issue with traffic or fire. Certainly no traffic. I don't think they're certainly not increasing enrollment in this. So having said that, can we put this to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. Hands and.
I vote yes.
Aye, so passes unanimously. Oh, zoning compliance. Next item, zoning compliance is 1865 Black Rock Turnpike. Application of Fairfield Construction LLC for a facade improvement in the design commercial district.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this subject parcel is the corner of Black Rock Turnpike and Catona Drive, and was the former site of Billy's Bakery. The applicant seeks to improve the facade by installing a new decorative gable on the Black Rock Turnpike face of the building. A new synthetic slate roof is proposed over the existing green metal mansard roof. These improvements are consistent with what this applicant has done on adjacent properties they own in the ShopRite Plaza and across the street at Fairway Plaza, with the same type of synthetic slate roof and gable improvements. So they are following up to make this consistent with other updates they have done on their adjacent parcels.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Watt. I have a motion on the item. Mr. Levy, thank you.
Move to approve.
Is there a second? Commissioner Randolph, thank you. Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's very similar to the gable that they put across the street in Fairway Plaza, so it'll be consistent with the neighborhood and it'll look better, so. I would approve the proposal.
Commissioner Randolph?
I echo Commissioner Levy's comments that building would benefit from some thought improvements. As a important location for Black Rock.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from the commission?
Briefly,
Oh, sorry, I didn't see it.
real quick, I didn't know that this was owned by the same owners, and so I commend them for trying to make these parcels uniform, because I think that's been the overall complaint of Black Rock Turnpike for 50 years. As that has developed since I was a kid, from remembering Fairmart, they were all individual lots being developed, kind of willy-nilly. to use that legal term, but you know, but so to have some consistency, and I was driving to the store last week and I noticed that across the street and how it matches, and it, you know, is it, you know, Fairfield Center? No, but it looks a heck of a lot nicer, so I commend the owners to trying to make it uniform, so I support it.
Thank you. You know, as you said, it looked better, it's in compliance with our regulations, so I mean, I don't see a reason to deny. Can we put this to a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands. And Commissioner Braun,
I'm in favor. Yes, in favor.
thank you. Passes unanimously. Next item is our public hearing, 161 Hillside Road, special exception application of Nest Greenfield Hill Inc. pertaining to additions and alterations to an existing building to establish a daycare in the neighborhood design district. Good evening, Attorney Collin.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. For the record, my name is John Fallon. It's, you see, I'm back to better shoes, but the wingtips are still staying at home. I've given the sandals a rest, so thank you for asking. I'm here tonight representing the Nest at Greenfield Hill Inc. We'll talk a little bit about the Nest and the company which they are a part of, but I want to introduce, we have, where are they seated in the back? Lee Small and Amy Small, who are the principals of the Nest and will be operating this facility, which hopefully you'll be good enough to approve. What we're seeking tonight is special exception approval of an early learning center to be located at 161 Hillside Road. I don't think there's any doubt, and we'll get into this evening, I'm sure, that there's a recognizable and documented need and shortage of facilities of this type in the town of Fairfield. The evidence will show that we're replete with waiting lists for such facilities. We've recently lived through the dialogue and controversy with regard to the longstanding Child's Garden and the termination of that lease, which has now been abrogated. There are simply too few programs in the area that offer full-day quality daycare, and this application will seek to address, at least in some way, that need, and do so in an area of town which is particularly in need of such a facility, and do so, as we'll elaborate throughout the course of our presentation, at a location that is well served and well suited for this particular permitted use. The availability, as I said, of quality daycare is something that's important to so many families in Fairfield. It provides peace of mind to hardworking parents. The access to high quality children care at this age and these ages improves outcomes for both children and families. And oh, by the way, having such facilities like the Nest in neighborhoods where they are needed helps support economic growth and vitality in our community. So let's talk a little bit about the location. The property is located in the Neighborhood Design Business District, and the proposed use is a permitted use in the zone, subject to special exception review pursuant to the provisions of section 12.5.17.1. This is an important fact which I'll elaborate on at the appropriate time in terms of the legal underpinnings of this application. Property being located in this business district, it's surrounded by numerous other commercial enterprises, including a restaurant, a market, a veterinarian's office, a dry cleaners, and other retail uses. The zone allows, beyond the context of what we are seeking, among the other permitted uses such as medical offices, retail, as I said, restaurants, self-laundry services, and other such. How that relates to this application, which we'll focus on tonight, is that these are important considerations, since all these permitted uses that I've just elaborated and others that are set forth in the regulations would provide for more significant volumes of traffic than will be included in this facility. And they would also provide for the possibility of evening traffic or activities significantly disruptive to the neighborhood. And they will also provide for opportunities for similar traffic and activity and disruption on weekends. We will not do that. Our site and our program, it will be from 7:30 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. So there'll be no evening activities and there will be no weekend activities. And we think that's an important thing to keep in mind. In addition, we are a relatively dormant facility from a traffic standpoint, as you will hear tonight, except for our periods of drop-off and pickup, which occur over approximately an hour or 2-hour period at the beginning and end of the day. And again, as you'll hear from our traffic engineer, Greg Del Rio, this compares very favorably in terms of traffic generations with regard to other uses, including the prior use of the bank with a drive-through. So let me talk a little bit about the Nest and the concept here. It's a full-time, full-year, high-quality early learning center, open Monday through Fridays, 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. It is Reggio Emilia inspired, which means that it supports an emergent curriculum which is inquiry-based and child-directed. Lee and Amy opened their first school in 2004 in Hamden. It still operates very successfully. And 7 years later, they were asked to open a second school serving the Spring Glen section of Hamden. Subsequently to that, they were approached by the Faculty of the Arts and Sciences at Yale University and asked to establish a focused on children 3 years and under daycare facility on the campus of Yale Divinity School. And they also then opened in 2019 a new school in the Stony Creek section of Brantford. So they have 4 schools. They have experience and track record here of 2 decades. And what they do, and it's evident by anybody who knows this business, is they run an exemplary and exceptional child care facility and services, again, based upon a child-directed learning and inquiry. This specific facility will employ 15 full-time employees, including 1 director, 10 teachers, 3 support staff, and because of an emphasis on good nutrition, 1 chef and a sous chef. The overall enrollment at any given time will be at a maximum of 72 students. But as I know you are aware, daycare facilities such as this are not schools in the traditional sense, so that the arrival and departure of students to accommodate the needs of the parents is generally staggered during the day and will not, like traditional schools, have specific arrival and departure times for all students. But we'll provide you sufficient and significant additional information with regard to that. We provide 28 parking spaces, which, by the way, is an increase of 3 spaces from the existing condition. And we had numerous meetings with neighbors, the purpose of which was to hear them. And in that regard, we did modify our application, as you'll hear momentarily, our site plan, to provide for enhanced ingress and egress. And that'll be reviewed by my colleague, Mr. Lowenstein, who I'll introduce in a minute. So our presentation in chief tonight will involve Mr. Kurt Lowenstein, who's seated to my right, of Land Tech. He will discuss with you the existing and proposed site plan and our site engineering. We have received a certificate of wetlands conformance with regard to our proposal, and we also have had a code enforcement review, and our plans are in accordance with all comments received at the code meeting. Once Kurt is giving an overview of the site, I'll call on Chris Williams of CWA Architects, who'll give you a brief overview of our architectural design and the interior floor plan. Bill Kenny has joined us, and he will provide you an update with regard to our landscaping plan. And then we will ask Mr. Greg Del Rio of Hardesty and Hanover to review with you the findings of his traffic reports and supplements that are part of your record. So at this point in time, I'd ask Kurt to provide you an overview of the existing and proposed conditions. We do have obviously graphics here. I just want to let the commissioners know that everything you're seeing on the screen during the course of our presentation, we will provide you before we close our presentation with copies of. So you'll have them to take home, review in your work session, et
It's
cetera.
already in our record.
They are already in the record, but so you'll have them conveniently for your own personal use.
This particular presentation already separately in our record, or is this?
It is. We sent everything you're seeing now in a to Ms. Harrigan.
Commissioner Randolph?
So we have everything that they're gonna show us.
That's fine, yeah.
Okay, I just wanna make sure.
It's within that folder.
Would you like the hard copies now?
No, I've got it here, so I just wanna make sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I guess.
sometimes we get late things.
Yes, please.
I can give you the hard copies now. This is just.
No idea, I saw, I'm surprised by it.
These are the same exhibits you're gonna see in sequence of the manner in which they will be reviewed as part of our presentation in chief.
Thank you.
And then you can have those to look at if you don't want to look at the screen, and you can have them to take home as well. I don't know, is it here?
This has already been our record, so he's just providing us courtesy copies.
Okay, so Mr. Lowenstein.
Commissioner Harrison?
Yeah, I just had a question, and thank you for the opening remarks, attorney. I just wanted to know, where are the customers drawn from? I understand that the daycare needs are in the state and the town are well documented, but can you tell me where we're drawing the clientele from?
Or
We're gonna get that later, that's fine.
if you want to, you could address it.
Anticipate the everybody coming.
Could you come forward?
Come up, please, and just give a name and,
Small.
thank you.
We anticipate that all the families will come from this area.
This area meaning Fairfield or Greenfield Hill?
I mean, I'm not sure how many people will get from Greenfield Hill. I'm sure we'll get a lot, but Fairfield in general. It's not, it's fairly expensive, childcare. So we're on the top end of cost pretty much at all of our locations, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask because the neighborhood design district is to provide, and I quote, local neighborhoods with needed and desirable convenience goods and services in a manner that's not detrimental to that residential area. So I just wanted to understand where
We
the clientele is coming from.
We anticipate there'll be the significant majority will be people from Fairfield, and we also would hope and assume many will find this location convenient because they live in Greenfield Hill or Lower Greenfield Hill.
I mean, all our other schools have people closest to them.
And then just while you're here, just one more question, if you don't mind. I saw that it's kind of on the upper echelon of daycares relative to pricing. Do you offer any scholarships or anything to perhaps students who are?
Offer care for, we participate in Care for Kids.
Okay, so can you just, what is that?
Care for Kids is a state program by the state of Connecticut that you have to, as a school, we have to qualify for that. And then the state gets money from the government to give to families. who
So people
qualify.
in need can
Yes,
potentially go there.
yes.
How many would that be?
Don't have many because our prices are on the higher end, and so what they get compared to what our tuition is typically not too affordable. So we have, one or two in each school.
Okay, so Mr. Lowenstein of Land Tech will walk you through the existing and proposed site conditions and the site engineering, which has, of course, received a certificate of wetlands conformance and reviewed and approved by your engineering department.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Kurt Lowenstein. I'm a licensed professional engineer in Connecticut with Land Tech. Our offices are located in Westport on Riverside Avenue. So for those that aren't familiar with the location of the site, it does lie on the corner of Hill Farm Road and Hillside Road, diagonal from the veterinary office that's there. The current property is, as you may know, a former Chase local bank. Emmeline, if you could flip to the existing conditions.
Thank you, Ms. Hargan.
So currently the site is accessed off of Hill Farm Road with 2 curb cuts. One fairly close to that stop sign and one farther up the road. And then the egress from the site is onto Hillside Road. Property is serviced by an on-site septic system, which is located in the rear of the building. Yep, there. There's a rear parking lot and a front parking lot. The rear provides the predominance of parking on site now, and then there's a small section of angled parking along the frontage. Both converge and then come out at Hillside Road. It will be on the left of your screen there on the southeasterly side of the site.
These are existing conditions?
Yes.
Thank you.
The property is serviced by public water as well as gas. Both utilities will be maintained for our proposal. And then Emily, go on to our proposed site layout. So as John said, we'll be renovating this existing structure, and for a childcare facility, we will be providing a small addition as well on the rear southwesterly side of the building there. Parking and circulation generally stays the same, other than the major improvement, in my opinion on this, is that existing curb cut closest to the intersection will be closed off, and that existing bank of parking will be removed and converted to a fenced-in play area for the children.
Where's the addition?
Say that again?
I'm sorry, where's the addition?
It'll be, I think my pointer is gonna make it. Thank you. Yeah, it'll be off the rear there.
Thank you, Ms. Hargan.
Just a small bump out. Roughly 200 square feet, for reference. Again, ingress is gonna remain off of Hill Farm Road. The parking lot configuration wise is essentially the same footprint, as well as there's a single loop going through the site towards Hillside Road, and we'll have a smaller bank of parking there as well. The major improvement here, aside from that curb cut being cut off, is that the functionality of this parking and circulating through the site is greatly improved as compared to the existing conditions here. Besides the parking and the building, we will be providing new ADA compliant walks and ramps around the entire perimeter of the building, accessed from all of the parking areas. And the balance of the site, as I know Bill will get into a little bit later, is going to consist of fenced in play areas, which will be a natural landscape essentially, and existing landscape areas that are to remain. There are existing wetlands on the property in the southwesterly corner of the site, which have been flagged. As John said, this has received approval through the wetlands process. And we also have gone through the WPCA. If you could move on to our next slide.
Mr. Randolph, hold on 1 second.
Yeah, so go to the last, in the upper left-hand corner, you had the percentage of lot coverage in this table. Yeah, there you go. Could you just walk us through that?
Sure. So from a zoning perspective, we are meeting all of the bulk zoning requirements. There is a slight increase in building coverage because we are putting on a small addition, which represents approximately 200 square feet of additional building coverage. And that's reflected in with the building floor area increase. I'll let, if there's any specifics on the makeup of what's in the addition, I'll say that and let Chris.
So you're going from 9.2% lot coverage to 9.8.
To 9.8, correct.
And then, Kathy, did you get that?
I have a question too.
Let's Commissioner Randolph
Yeah,
finish.
so you went from 9.2% lot coverage to 9.8. I just wanted to clarify that. That's it.
Commissioner Braun, go ahead.
Yeah. On one of the charts I saw, there's also something called a building extension. Is that the same thing as the bump out you're doing, or is that a different thing? Because it looked like that was expanding a little bit also by a couple hundred square feet.
Building extension.
Is there, I saw it on the cover sheet of the application, that there's a building extension you know, on the cover sheet, where you
There are
handwrite
some
and type
exterior
things.
egress stairs.
Wait for her, then go ahead.
I don't think it's on the revised plans. It's on the original set that, you know, there's a cover sheet you have to fill out. That had something called a building extension that was being expanded. And I was wondering, is that the same thing as this a little bump out you're doing, or is that a different thing?
I think it's the same thing, Commissioner. If there was a poor choice of nomenclature, I apologize, but there's one discrete building addition / expansion of about 566.
Okay.
200 square feet.
200, so that's all.
Is that bump out taking up more impervious surface, or is that just on top of like an existing parking lot or something?
Essentially, it's partially over existing walkway and parking. There is from an.
And then,
Go.
yeah, sorry. I had another question. So the orientation of these plans is north is to the right. So it's a little confusing, but so north is where Hill Farm Road is.
Correct.
And so when you say southwest for the wetland, you're looking to the left where the park, where that dotted line is, and that's the 100-foot wetlands upland review area. The flags are right there, and then the 100-foot upland review area would be the larger area that goes through the parking lot. And so the question is, have you expanded impervious surface in this plan versus what was already there? Like, is that the same parking lot that was already there? And are you changing things within that upland review area to add impervious surface? I know you're adding a playground, but what used to be there? Just raw land or something else?
No, there's an existing parking lot there. Maybe if we can scroll up to the existing conditions map, maybe a little bit clearer. So in the rear, you can see that there's an existing parking lot there, and we are working essentially within that same footprint with our new parking lot. It's expanded in some places and reduced in others, but otherwise within the upland review area, to answer your question, it's about a net, zero of new impervious in the upland review area. From a total site standpoint, there is a slight increase in impervious area on the order of magnitude of roughly 500 square feet, but relatively balanced in the upland review area.
I don't know if it's the right time to ask the question. I had questions about your code review minutes from conservation. I know did they give you a certificate of conformance already?
Yes.
So, because in April, when they did the code review, they had a few suggestions, which are above my pay grade. I don't really understand the technology of it, but there's 7 suggestions. Did you do all of those suggestions in order to get the certificate?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I would have thought by looking at this site and seeing that you're blocking off the parking lot to the northeast, and making that a playground, that's not gonna become.
That's not counted towards the impervious area. It's really just the function of the parking reconfiguration.
Okay,
It's a
so when
slight
you're looking at
increase.
parking lots only, you're not changing much, but you are removing that, you are making a parking lot a playground area.
That's correct.
Is that gonna be, I assume that's not gonna be all grass, it's gonna be some kind of playground material on the.
It's gonna be a mix of natural material. I think it's
Wood chips.
Yeah.
Wood chips and grass.
Wood chips and grass.
Alright, I guess that's not necessarily impervious at that point, but
It's
you're
not gonna be like a
Okay,
typical playground you would think of, like with the artificial ground and things
Yeah,
like
okay.
that.
alright. Go, continue,
I have
please.
another question.
Commissioner Braun, go ahead.
When I'm orienting an aerial photo I have here with Hill Farm to the right, so it would be sort of the upper left, there's a lot of trees there, so those will have to come down, I assume, right? As part of the playground area?
No, and we can go 2 slides forward. I can address that. Soil erosion sediment control plan. One more, right there. So the vast majority of the trees and landscape on the site will be retained, and I don't want to get too into it right now because Bill's going to elaborate on that more as far as the makeup of how these playgrounds are put together. The trees that will be removed are a function of that new parking in the front. but all the existing screening buffer in the western portion, so this would be the upper portion of the plan, and the southern portion will remain. The slope that's there now is
Let him
You
finish.
mean the wetland portion, the portion closer to the wetlands? I'm
Correct.
disoriented because when you say west, that's to the north is to the right, so west is up top. Okay, yeah.
correct. So
And so it's just, and somebody else will give the presentation, so I won't belabor it, but it seems like in the narrative, your sort of brand is nature and things like that. So does that mean that you're going to have more of a natural type of playground, not the usual type?
that's correct.
Yes, and that will be
Okay.
addressed, yes.
Okay, I'll hold off. Thanks.
Continue, please.
Uh,
I'm sorry, Commissioner Seaver?
Yeah. As it relates to the planting, which is on this slide. Maybe I'm getting ahead, so I apologize. Could you give an overview of what you're keeping and what you're adding? 'Cause I see you're adding a lot of trees on Hillside Road.
If we could hold off on some of the
Mr.
specifics of
Kenny's
the
going to
landscaping.
address that, if that's okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
we will certainly be addressing that fully. I just don't wanna get too far ahead of
that's fine.
myself here.
Continue, please.
Perfect, just on this plan here. Thank you. So for utilities, like I said, will be connecting to sanitary sewer, abandoning the existing septic system. We've already gone through the WPCA process and received their approval. There is sewer currently on Hillside Road. Actually, it terminates right in front of the property next door to us, so we will be extending the main slightly, roughly 90 feet within Hillside Road, and then connecting our structure to that. Exactly right in there. Like I said, public water and gas are to remain. We will be providing a fire department connection, so there will be an additional service brought in. And the big improvement here is that the current site, although it does have 2 or 3 catch basins on it, they essentially just dump out into the slope, which is to the south or the left side of the plan as you're looking at it. We'll be capturing not only the new parking areas, but also the existing building roof area and of course, our new addition, and routing all of that stormwater into our new proposed stormwater system, which is shaded there in blue. That system has been sized for up to the 100-year storm event, as well as water quality treatment. And because we have a wetland on the property and upland review area, it does also meet 10-year post-development runoff being controlled down to the 2-year pre-development runoff. So it's a substantial reduction in runoff compared to what's there today. Stormwater that's detained that is not infiltrated in the ground, that's the primary method for it. But there will be some overflow coming from our system. It'll be metered out by a manhole structure to the west of the system or to the top of the page, and it will come out to a flared in section and riprap apron, which is being circled there to dissipate the flows so that they'll mimic an overland type of flow, so there's no scour or erosion from the outlet. That has been reviewed by the town engineer. We have gotten a favorable sign off from them. They are comfortable with our design and have no further comment. The only other thing that I wanted to hit on with our with respect to the project, if we could go to the soil erosion sediment control plan, is regarding the existing trees and landscaping. We've tried very hard to maintain as much of the existing trees and screening that's there now by maintaining that existing footprint of the parking lot. We certainly could have expanded further to the west, but we would have lost all of that mature foliage that's there. So we've really kept within that footprint. We've kept the curb cut relatively the same off of Hill Farm, all in an effort to preserve as many trees and landscape on this property. And as I said, Bill will get into this a little bit later. The concept of this facility is a natural playscape, being, the kids learning what it is to properly interact with nature rather than an artificial outside for them to play in. So with that, I mean, like I said, we have engineering sign off, we have WPCA sign off, we have conservation sign off, and we do meet all the full zoning requirements for the zone. So with that, I'll
Thank you.
pass that off to Chris.
Commissioner Harrison, then Levy.
Yeah, I had a few questions. How much impervious surface will be added?
Roughly 500.
What is there now?
There's currently 16,200 and we'll be at 16,900. At 500.
I had a question on the code review minutes. It says, Mr. Bishop, the conservation director, wanted the removal of the impervious surface shown on site plan C. Can you explain that?
Don't recall exactly what he was, the specifics of what I think he was probably referring to the parking in the front by removing that. And kind of keeping it all in line with the existing footprint of the rear parking, but I don't recall specifically what he was getting at with the impervious surface. I don't know if he knew the exact net at the time, but from a high level look at this, it's essentially staying the same. 500 relative to 16,000.
He did review the certificate of wetlands conformance application and issued.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what he meant by that. Maybe Mr. Wen could get that clarified for us.
Okay,
Commissioner Levy,
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
In terms of the site plan and the parking, does that contemplate that parents would park and then escort the children in? Or is it anticipated that there'd be a drop off and staff would escort them in?
No, they would park, walk their child inside or children, then get back in their car and leave. So the programming of the site and the parking is centered around that and is capable of handling that.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Lowenstein will be here during the proceedings if you should think of anything else. I think I call on Kenny, William Kenny and Associates. The segue from Mr. Lowenstein is the landscaping plan, and he'll review that with you, including the playground itself.
Commissioner Pikowski.
Just a quick question. So next to the childcare center, there's a restaurant, or what's around it? I can see
Can
on.
we go back up to the aerial to give some orientation to?
That's the first slide.
I guess right back to the first slide. Can you just point out? There we are.
Yeah.
Just to orient the commission to what's the surrounding utilizations.
Yes, please.
Adjacent to our property, obviously the shopping center, et cetera, et cetera.
And then to the left, that's a home.
Right, yeah, Bill will do it.
Sure.
Sitting here in the hot seat.
Okay. Good evening, I'm Bill Kenny, I'm the principal of William Kenny Associates. I'm a professional landscape architect, wetland scientist, and soil scientist. The building immediately to the south and on the southeast corner of the site, that's a small office building. And then behind that is, or to the southwest of that is an office building and apartment building. The right-hand side is apartments, the left-hand side is office space. And then behind that is the retail space with Bonda, Lexington Home and Garden gift shop, the chocolate shop, dog grooming, some exercise shops, cut flowers. And then the next building down is the liquor store and dry cleaning. And then the market is the furthest one down.
Isn't there a very well-known landscape architect who has a has a building somewhere there?
Yes.
Yes, where is that? Where's his building?
Right.
Yes. So does that orient you?
Yeah, and then next to that, to the left, or what is that, the south side is a home, and then across the street, across Hillside, if you go up, sorry, Evelyn, sorry.
Yeah, if you go up to the
Yeah.
intersection, you have Dr. Marsh's existing veterinary building, which
Okay.
he will be departing at some reasonably soon point to go down the street
to the new facility, which is coming to completion, which you were good enough to approve a year and a half ago. We hope you like the way it has come out. Then his old or his existing office will become vacant and will have to be considered for some future use.
Thank you.
So I'd like to review with you the landscape plan that we prepared for the project. A more broad review first by just talking about the different types of landscape that is involved with the project, and then get into some more of the details. And so existing buildings, existing parking and drives, and a fair amount of existing vegetation, trees on the property. The drawing that's for you right now is our planting plan. We have two other drawing sheets, one with images of the playground equipment that would be involved with the project, and another one includes the types of fencing that's being proposed. With regard to the landscape types, there is planting associated with the wetland in the southwest corner, which is the top left-hand corner, and then there's planting that's buffering the neighbors. There is one residential neighbor immediately adjacent to the property. It's at the top of the property. So we're taking that into consideration. There's some streetscape planting. Then there's planting around the building. And lastly, there's some playscape landscape. So if we start with the wetland, that area today it's a small area that extends onto the site, and it's maintained as lawn and really like a place where yard waste has been dumped in the past. So it's been degraded over time, and we're proposing to remove all the yard waste, remove the lawn, plant that area with native ground cover, native shrubs and native trees. And at its most eastern edge, closest to where the proposed activities are on the site, we're proposing to plant native evergreen trees to complement an existing evergreen screen that follows the length of that parking lot on the west side. So we'll be having a continuous evergreen screen from the southern property line to essentially the northern property line. Most of that screen exists today, except close to the wetland. So then moving to that screening along the parking lot, it is fairly substantial. It's mostly green giant arborvitae, which are doing quite well there and very thick and providing good cover. So extreme effort was put into keeping that edge of pavement and not encroaching into that. You can see the property line is substantially beyond that parking lot, but we held that parking lot edge to preserve those trees. We're proposing a few trees to supplement where there are some gaps, so we're going to fill in the gaps. So then if we move up to Hill Farm Road and talk perhaps about the streetscape, we're proposing rows of shade trees along the road, the two roads. We worked closely with the town tree warden. So we have oaks running along Hill Farm Road about every 30 or 40 feet on center. And then when you get on Hillside Road, we have maples. On Hillside, there are two sugar maples directly in front of the building that are in significant decline. And quite dangerous. Large limbs have been falling from those trees. We reviewed that with the town tree warden. That is on the town property. He recommended that those trees come down, which we also felt was inappropriate. So those trees are proposed to be removed. We are planting 3 trees in that area and another one to the south on the opposite side of the access drive. So that's the streetscape. Otherwise, it'll be within the town right away. It'll be maintained primarily as lawn with shade trees to very similar to what is in the neighborhood for street trees along the rural type area that this borders. And then next, like this, around the building, there's limited areas where we're going to do traditional, what you might call foundation planting around the building where area permits. There's sidewalks providing access entirely around the building, so we'll plant between the the building and the parking lot and the sidewalks. And then lastly are the playscape areas.
Just a question about, the sidewalks exist there?
Some of them do and some are being added.
So it'll be sidewalks fully around?
That's correct.
I'm sorry, were those indicated on the plan?
I'm sorry?
Were the sidewalks indicated on the plan?
No sidewalks.
There's no sidewalks.
There's no sidewalks.
The sidewalks are
Hold on.
around the perimeter of the building, not on the perimeter of the site.
Okay, so the question from Commissioner Ford was, I think, are you gonna be putting sidewalks along the street?
Yes. I misunderstood. I apologize.
So let's ask that, let's answer, if you can answer that question, please.
Sidewalks are not proposed along this street. And I believe there was discussion with regard to that with staff. I was not directly involved with that.
Yeah, somebody else can answer, that's fine, but it's just,
We're not, I mean, we can answer now, we're not proposing sidewalks, public sidewalks around the perimeter of the site. We don't think they lead to anywhere. We think that we don't see a lot of pedestrian traffic there other than what's gonna occur on site. And we do have the sidewalks that Bill referred to, so I apologize if we didn't, so.
and I don't believe that there are sidewalks on that side of Hillside or Hill Farm Road existing anywhere else on the road. There are no sidewalks on the other side of each of the streets. No, yeah, that's my recollection as well. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. So there's two playscape areas. One is immediately north and east of the building. These areas will adding trees to these areas, similar to the right of way along Hillside Road. There is a large sugar maple immediately north of the building on the property that is in decline. And we would be removing that and putting in new shade trees, oak trees, that will also act as streetscape trees. So otherwise, these playscape areas will be primarily open, except for there's a vegetable garden that's proposed where food will be grown for use on the property and with the students and the employees. This area will be, or both of the playscape areas will be fenced in. There's two types of fencing that's proposed. One that's a privacy fence, and that'll be used where these in areas that are on towards the adjacent property owners, except at the street. At the street, the fencing would be ornamental fencing, but also a fencing that provides to keep the children from leaving that area. And so then if we move to the other playscape area, which is south of the building and the parking lot, this is a great example of the natural play that's proposed. This area has some somewhat level lawn area that exists today on the most southern border of the area, but immediately adjacent to the parking lot is a sloped area. The intent is just leave that slope the way it is, leave the trees that exist there today, and the kids would just play on the slope and then around the trees and use their creativity to enjoy that space in a variety of different ways, and also be eventually have access and the ability to learn about the wetland, all the other resources, natural resources that are on the property, wildlife and plants. Lastly,
Sorry, will there be fencing in that southern play area?
yes, yep. With the planting that's proposed, it's almost entirely native. The only non-native plants proposed are the ones that we're using to supplement the existing screen. Otherwise, we have 1728 trees, 114 shrubs, and close to 400 ground cover plants that are proposed. And like I said, there just 5 of those are not native, but they're not invasive. The play structures, we have one of our drawing sheets, one of the 3 drawing sheets has images of the type of play structures that would be used. We have numbers on the site plan that show where it's envisioned to have these types of structures located within the playscape areas. And pleased to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Kenny?
Thank you. Our architect is Chris Williams of CWA Architectural Design, and he will briefly walk you through our exterior plans for the building as well as a brief overview of the interior floor plan. Chris.
After his presentation, I forgot to ask I assume Mr. Lowenstein about sightlines.
Yes.
For him.
Yeah,
So
yes, or Mr. Del Rio, who's gonna come.
after his, at some point, if we can add that into the,
Mr. Del Rio will cover that.
thank you.
Name is Christopher Williams, offices at 8 Willow Street, New Haven, Connecticut. The building isn't gonna be changing all that much from the exterior, other than a small addition in the back. The area that used to be the main entrance, at least visually, along the road, will just be an entrance to the play area. The entrance that most people will be using will be on the west side, towards the top of the sheet. We're enhancing that with a accessible ramp for people with disabilities and steps. And generous lobby that turns into sort of a curved central space. Factor in this daycare is the kitchen. So you're gonna be walking right by the kitchen. Windows looking into it. There's an existing stair that leads up to the second floor. So the main level of the building will have 3 major classrooms for 2-year-old, two that will be for 2-year-old children, and 1 for preschool children, in addition to the kitchen. There'll be an office, and each classroom has its own bathroom facilities. There will be a small toilet room to the upper, you can see it on the upper left-hand corner. That's directly accessible from the exterior for when the kids are in the playground and they have to go to the bathroom. Going up to the second floor, we're gonna create a 2-story lobby that you look down into from the second floor. There's a kindergarten room to the north, to the right side, a teacher's conference room, sort of in the middle, and pre-K, which will take up most of that addition that you see in the back there. Now, currently, you go to the next slide. These are just the exterior elevations. The second floor is second means of egress from the ends of the building with exterior stairs. One end, we're gonna maintain those stairs. On the other end, we're gonna add a similar stair. This is the view from the parking lot. However, we have a much better view in the rendering. So maybe the next slide. You can see on that slide though, on that view, scroll down a little bit, to the left is the addition. Currently, there's a 1-story, 200 square foot windowless box, which is currently the bank vault. We didn't really have a need for a vault in the daycare, so we're gonna demolish it and replace it with a 2-story addition. So part of the addition is replacing that vault. The rest of it is expanding it to be the kitchen, and the top floor is all for preschool. So maybe go to the renderings. Yeah, zoom down. This is an aerial view. No one will actually have this view. There's not many tall buildings in the area. So you could see the main entrance right next to the addition, and we're gonna maintain the brick exterior materials that are on the bank now. The addition, second floor will be mostly glass with wood trim. The rest of the building is maintaining its existing sort of colonial character that the bank has. Maybe the last slide, you get when you're dropping your children off. You can see the door at the top of the little stairs there. There's currently a dormer across the back of the bank that the bank had offices in. we're maintaining that. And then the second story addition you could see to your right. Otherwise, from the road, it's gonna really remain as you see it today.
The addition though, just on the second floor, or is it an extension of the first floor?
There's a 172 square foot extension on the first floor, but we are replacing the entire vault because the vault has no windows, has 2 foot thick walls, and it's not really appropriate for daycare. So we're replacing that. And then the second floor addition.
Thank you, Chris.
Oh, who does? Commissioner Seeger, go ahead.
Height is the same?
Yes, you can see that we're aligning with the existing floor. Sorry.
I also wanted to acknowledge that Mr. Collins is also on the phone.
Yes, thank you. I don't think well, if he has a question, he'll speak up, I think. Commissioner Randolph?
Will you be replacing the roof?
No, it's a slate roof. There'll be obviously a new roof on the addition and part of the dormer. But most of the roof is slate and we're gonna keep that. As well as all the beautiful crown moldings that create the eaves around the perimeter of the building. And like I said before, the brick material on the ground floor and the upper parts of the gables.
So will you match the roof on the addition?
We're not probably not gonna use slate on the addition. However, it's a very low slope and it's up high. You really won't be able to see it that well from the ground anyway.
Visually, you'll see a match?
Well, there is a shingle that GAF makes called slate line. And the cut is very similar in size and proportion to slate roofs. And I wanna encourage my client to use that material. But of course, we'll study it and make sure it's most.
Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, just the eastern elevation or eastern facade, the one on hillside, will there be any significant changes, whether to doors, windows or anything of that nature?
No, it's essentially remaining as is.
Other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When you say colonial look, could you just explain in general, what does that mean? Is it sort of like a pale brick with clapboard on it, or what are the types of colonial looks that you have for commercial buildings?
Well, in this case, the building has a very residential feel to it. It's sort of a Cape Cod colonial style in that it's a 1.5 story building with a steeply sloped second floor area that is punctuated by dormers along Hillside Avenue. The colonial features that it currently has that we're gonna maintain are crown moldings at the eaves and at the gable ends. The windows will have divided type lights. The windows will be operable. Currently, the bank has aluminum and glass storefront for windows that are not operable with fake divided lights. We're gonna improve on that with a more residential quality window that will open and we'll have true divided lights. And the existing brick is a red brick and we're gonna maintain that brick. So it's really the shape of the building that gives it its colonial character and the detailing.
And the brick with clapboard, is that a typical colonial style for commercial buildings?
It can be, yes.
Yeah.
And it's what's existing now and what we're gonna maintain and expand upon in the addition in the back.
Thank you.
You have or proposing lighting in the parking lot?
We did submit a lighting plan. It's very subdued, but it is part of the record.
Parks time compliant, all that?
And again, since we don't operate at, there will be some times in the year, winter time, but overall, the site lighting is very
It
benign.
complies with the lighting requirements and zoning regulations.
Thank you. What else?
Yes. And height and architectural.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
Our traffic engineer is Greg Del Rio from Hardesty in Hanover. And he'll give you a brief overview of his report and findings.
Good evening, everyone. Greg Del Rio, professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. Director of traffic for Hardesty and Hanover. So we conducted a traffic evaluation and I'm just gonna summarize the findings in terms of trip generation, the activity expected as compared to the bank, parking generation, as well as safety and crashes and accidents. So starting off with trip generation, the table you see on the screen now summarizes the bank on the first line there, and then number 2 would be the childcare, 72 students. So if you look down those first columns where I highlighted at the driveway, that's vehicle trips at the driveway, and you can see compared to a bank during the typical commuter hours, all right, so that's the peak morning and the peak evening commuter hours. In the morning, it's only 2 more trips total at the driveway. And it's less than, I can't see the numbers from here. 56 trips less in the evening.
Is this based on ITE or actual trip?
Correct,
Can you just
ITE.
go through quickly what that means for?
Yes, so the Institute of Transportation Engineers puts out a manual for trip generation as well as parking generation. It's basically the sort of the national guide that's used for traffic studies. It's the Connecticut guide for traffic studies, and it's also, used in all the towns and cities in Connecticut for these types of traffic studies. So it provides it has traffic studies from all across the country that provide the data for all the different land uses, and that's the basis of our traffic studies. If we tried to do something else, and it was a state project or on a state road, they would decline it and say, you need to use IT.
And IT does not have specific data to Fairfield, it's from all across the
It's
country.
from all across, yeah. But it applies and it's been shown to apply locally time and time again.
Yeah, so Mr. Del Rio, there's always a lot of questions about ITE. In your professional opinion and your experience, how accurate are the ITE traffic forecasts and how applicable are they to this condition for this location?
They're very.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, when we do traffic studies before and after, we find, we just did one for mixed use in Norwalk. Where the numbers were, if trip generation said 52, we counted 57. We were, right in the ballpark every time. Same thing with parking.
Mute Mr.
So what project is that?
I think he's causing.
I'd have to look for the specific use, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to.
Okay.
Which one it was.
That's fine.
So I'm sorry, could you just repeat what you just said?
She was asking what project that was and.
But just to clarify, the ITE forecasts, in your opinion, are very accurate, somewhat accurate, not accurate?
Very accurate, usually, typically.
Thank you.
Video, please, thank you.
I have a question.
Oh, Commissioner Braun, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm looking at the parking schedule, which is a separate, I don't know if you saw this or not, but it's a separate
Hold on.
exhibit, I guess.
Commissioner Braun, where's the parking? Is that later?
Yeah, that's a few slides ahead. We'll
Why
get
don't
to it.
we, if you can just hold that till we get to it, just so we can get
Well,
through this.
my subject concerns trip generation. So they're trying to stagger people coming in and out. Is that why you have a low number during the peak? The peak period for morning is what? 7:30 to 9?
That's pretty accurate, yes. The parking staggering is not applied to the trip generation.
They're two separate, so because we're gonna cover both. Right now, we're
But
talking
you
about.
still have, okay, you have 72 students and 15 full-time employees, but all 72 won't be going every day because some of the students are there 3 days a week, some of the students are there 2 days. I'm trying to figure out how many people are going in and out. like, did you look at project-specific information about the childcare? Or did you, like, for this project, or did you look at the ITE for childcare of something this size? Like, it seems like this is very customized, how they're doing it.
We did both.
But I guess,
When you're ready, I'll answer.
and then the same thing with the bank. So like a bank in downtown Fairfield, I would expect would get more for the drive-through than like Greenfield Hill, like a little neighborhood bank. But so it's hard to tell if it applies. It seems like you would get more traffic from a childcare facility with 72 students and 15 full-time employees than you would for a little neighborhood bank. And also can you just go through the site generation again? I'm a little confused about the numbers.
Yeah, we just so as before Mr. Del Rio does that, we have two different things here, and both of which we're gonna cover, and one of which we're covering now.
Well, I'll hold off then.
No, it's fine. I just wanna kind of make sure you understand we're gonna cover both. One is the traditional analysis of traffic site generation based upon the proposed use, and in this case, the previous use. And Mr. Del Rio will summarize that again in a second. The other, which we will get to momentarily, is the sufficiency of on-site parking, taking into consideration the specific nature of our use and how, based upon our experience at 4 other facilities in New Haven County, we operate our particular schools. So that we will walk through that. I believe you've already seen, or it's part of the record, but we'll get into it. We have a chart. We talk about how we handle that and how that extrapolates in terms of the availability of parking. But right now, we're just talking about traffic generation based upon ITE standards for a bank and a childcare facility. And if you could just summarize those again, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even get through the trip generation, so.
So table 1 is,
Yeah, it's table 1. I've got a lot more to go on table 1, so.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, and in general, it's the opposite. The bank generates a lot more traffic than a daycare facility on most hours of the day, and certainly on a daily basis, and certainly on a Saturday when the childcare is not even open. But getting to specifics, so I went down that first column. That's the number of trips that actually shows up at the driveway. There's something called pass-by trips, which is applied to the bank and does not get applied to the childcare. And that's sort of a link trip, right? It's a pass-by credit. So for a bank, many times you're not just going to the bank, you're also going to retail, or it's on your way home from work. So it's a car that's already on the road, and we're not adding it to the road. So that's what those 2 middle columns are, where it says pass-by vehicle trips. And then we subtract that from the primary, from the first column to get new trips that are on the road. So that first column is at the driveway. That last column that's highlighted in yellow at the bottom are new trips on the road. That's why there's 2 different numbers. But in either case, the morning is slightly more for the childcare in the peak hour than the bank, fairly same order of magnitude. During the evening peak, it's a lot less than a bank generates from, like, let's say, the 5 to 6 o'clock hour. Now, on a daily basis, this was not in the original traffic study, but we wanted to add this to emphasize that the whole rest of the day, and hopefully it's intuitive, that a childcare facility is not generating a lot of traffic in and out during the middle of the day. Lunchtime, for example, at a bank is very busy. It's one of their busiest times. Lunchtime at a childcare facility is fairly quiet. So when you look at it in terms of daily trips, the bank of that size generates roughly 542 trips a day, while a childcare facility generates around 304 trips a day. That's a reduction compared to the bank that was there of 238 trips, or a 44% reduction in daily traffic that's going in and out of that driveway on a Monday through Friday. And it's 100% reduction on Saturdays. So there's a lot less trips over the week, over the year, however you look at it, there's a lot less trips, and even on most hours of the day, there's a lot less trips for a childcare facility compared to a bank. So that's the main story to tell as far as trip generation, as far as traffic on the roads, as far as traffic in the site.
I have a question. Follow up.
Hold on, let me just ask one and then it's your turn.
Okay.
For this IT last time it was published is in 2021. So the data would be from 2021 or earlier.
Correct.
Thank you. Commissioner Braun.
Okay, so off from what the chairman said, so that would have, I don't know if that would encompass modern, banking. I never go to the bank, anymore, and everything is remote. So I don't know if the ITE would accurately reflect modern practices, but also again, I still have the same question about a downtown bank of this size versus a little community bank of this size. But also, I don't understand why you get a credit for pass by. You're talking about you're not generating traffic on the road, but I think the main issue from reading the letters from the neighbors is this corner is very bad at certain times of the day. It's a cut through, it's a shortcut, it's a roll through, it's a bad intersection. And so even if you're not adding traffic to the road, you could, if you have, you could, there, you're adding things going in and out of the building, right?
That's not true. That's not true.
No?
And it's, right now, I've read the
Sorry, 'cause
letters, I've read the letters too, and I don't want to get ahead of myself because at some point I'll rebut. However, I think what's our evidence for this record here and now is that the bank is a significantly higher generator of volume on the adjacent roadways than the daycare will be. And Mr. Del Rio used the word intuitive, and I think it is intuitive because banks are banks coming and going and lunchtime or whatever. Once our kids arrive, they stay and then they go home. And the site from a traffic standpoint is dormant after that, just to finish the point. Therefore, if the focus is going to be on off-site traffic impacts to what some people perceive to be a busy intersection, and we have evidence contrary to that as well, which we will show somewhat, then our position is clearly that, hey, we're making that situation which concerns you better because we're replacing a generator of 542 trips per day with one that generates 304, thereby reducing off-site traffic by 43%. That's the evidence.
Okay. Can you explain, just so I understand this chart, when you have enters and exits, let's say weekday morning for the bank, enter 31, exit 23, what does that mean? People go in and they don't go out? I don't understand why there's different numbers. I don't understand that.
So some of them, right, so they don't all stay the same amount of time, right? So some of them, it's just during that particular hour, that's the activity of entries and exits. So, in the morning, you see that it's a little more higher on the entries, right? Because people are getting there. And maybe they haven't finished doing their banking. Some of those are employees coming to work, so they're not leaving. So that's why you see it higher in the morning. In the evening, it's a little more balanced with the entries and exits.
These numbers are all for 1 hour during a peak period in the morning.
Correct, for the weekday morning, and then the same thing for the weekday afternoon, the peak hour in the afternoon.
So it's 54 trips in and out for a bank on a weekday morning at any time between what and what? Because the bank isn't open at 7:30, but I assume like 9 o'clock, So in any one given hour, you would expect 54 cars going in and out.
Correct.
Of a bank.
For a bank of that size. And that's the other, nuance that when you were comparing a local small bank to a big city bank, it's the size.
Yeah.
So usually the one that's built in the, in the rural area or a lesser dense area is also gonna be a smaller building and a smaller bank. And therefore, when we apply the rate, it'll have much less traffic than, a larger bank that might be 2, 3, 4 times the size in a more urban or populated area.
And then just down the chart for the childcare of 72 students, I assume there's some category in the ITE, which just stands for International Traffic, something. They have.
Institute of Transportation Engineers.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. So for a childcare of 72 students, you would expect 30 to go in, 26 to go out, 56 during a 1 hour period of the peak morning time range, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Harrison and then Commissioner Ford.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to be very clear. And then column 1, existing drive-in bank, that is just kind of an average. That's just average nationwide of what a bank would be. Because that is, well, it's closed for many years now, but I used to be a Chase Bank customer. I never went up there, I have to say. I don't know who did, and I think it's just a very quiet bank. But I think what I'm concerned about, and I think this does allay my thoughts a little bit, but not really. I am concerned because that area is used as a cut through. I use it myself to bypass traffic on Post Road. We know the realities of that. We certainly don't want anyone to get hurt, especially little kids. That's a big concern of mine. So I'll look at this more, and I appreciate your time.
Right, and remember that with the whole crash relationship, generating less traffic. So when you apply the crash rate, right? So many crashes per million entering vehicles is our metric. We're actually reducing the amount of traffic in the area, and therefore less crashes.
Commissioner
Then
Ford.
I just
Oh,
actually,
sorry,
if I
sorry.
may,
No,
I'm
no,
sorry. And I'm not sure if you're there yet in your presentation, but would there be a need for overflow parking in another, in the nearby shopping plaza? If there was, maybe a holiday event or some kind of special event happening at the school?
That's a good question. The answer is no, because we don't have our special.
There are no special events at the school?
You wanna just address that, how we handle that?
So Amy Small again, and when we met with the neighbors and their attorney, we talked about how our other schools have special events about 5 times a year. And we can't do it on this site because there's nowhere to park. So to get the whole school together at the same time.
By classroom.
Right. So we might do it by a class, we'll have to do things differently.
Commissioner Ford.
Help me, because I'm looking at, these are 2 different uses, so the bank is more like a retail where you can't predict. I know you're in the business of predicting, but from my layman's perspective, I don't know how many, if I had a store, I don't know how many people necessarily gonna go in. I hope there's enough. Here, I think there's 70 or 72 students plus, about 15 employees, so that's like a finite number, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm making your point, but so what else, like, no one's driving by, just to stop in.
Right, the daycare. Yeah, you mean the daycare?
It's a lot more predictable, I think, is what.
Well, I guess that's my point. Isn't it predictable? So, because I understand what the neighbors are saying, that, they think there's going to be a traffic issue, but at the same time, I'm like, from 7:30 to 9 o'clock, you're getting all of your trips in and out of the way, and the rest of the day might be free and clear, and there's nothing on the weekends. So is it really, can you balance that 90 minutes of maybe, over, it's a little bit more burdensome on the neighborhood, and compare it to the rest of the day is a little more quiet and the weekends are more quiet. I don't know if I have a question there. I'm just trying to reconcile it in my head. Because if the bank, and let's say the bank in the daycare center had the same amount of traffic, right? Let's say whatever the number was, really doesn't matter. You could say the daycare here is going to be concentrated in the beginning and the end of the day, where the bank is going to be spread across the day. You may not necessarily feel that, that traffic if you're in the neighborhood, right? Is that Is that a fair statement? Okay. Alright, so it's really about the intensity of the.
And there's, I think that's, you know, when you guys get into your work session, I think that's an excellent way to look at it. And I think there's one more layer of the onion, and before these proceedings are over, I'm gonna talk about the law a little bit too. And I think one of the other things that becomes part of that analysis, we're not here to argue with anybody about whether that's a busy intersection, whether it's a cut through or not. You know, we can argue about that, but it's not really relevant to the evidentiary facts on this record. And there's two, one I've covered already. We think it's self-evident, intuitive, but also documented by the ITE that we're gonna reduce traffic from the current past use by 43%. But the other thing that, when you look at Commissioner Ford's kind of overview of balancing things, that you can look at is what other uses do you permit in this zone? Okay, what do you permit in this zone? Daycare is permitted. I think it's a pretty good use for this property, even if I buy into the neighborhood's concerns about it's a busy intersection. Well, boy, if there's a restaurant there, or a 24-hour self-service laundry, or a medical doctor's office where they're booking 10 or 12 patients per hour, 6 days a week or 5.5 if they work on Saturday morning. And that's another thing for you in your planning function to consider. You permit all these uses. And even if you are sympathetic or open-minded to the neighbor's concerns about this intersection, okay, what's gonna go there? I know for a fact that, and there's nothing wrong, nobody's criticizing anybody about this, but where the gasoline, the automotive repair shop is at the end of the street, the owner of that property wanted to bring in a big, very popular ice cream chain, regional, but whatever. People went crazy and he gave up. So he's got that there. It's, I guess, working out for everybody. But when you consider these types of applications, and I wish the neighbors felt that way, and I live in that neighborhood and I travel that road every day, you've got to think about, okay, if not this, then what? And when you look at it that way, a daycare facility operating solely on weekdays, no evenings, and with what we're laying out to you as our planned use, I think that's a winner. I didn't mean to jump ahead. Go ahead.
Hold on. Commissioner Bukowski, then I'll start at Seaver and work down.
Okay, great, thanks. So interestingly, I live directly next to a daycare, and the only thing that sets us apart is a fence. And while we do say it is intuitive to think about the traffic, I will say that it almost stopped us from buying a house. But my personal experience, and if this is any consolation for the neighbors or for us to think about, is that it is exactly what we're saying. It's very predictable. And there is no nighttime, there is no weekend traffic. And if anything, it's been something that we've really enjoyed not having to deal with. And the staggered nature of a daycare does matter in the sense that you don't have like a huge influx of traffic at any one point of the day. The fact that there aren't any events, that's pretty big. But I would also say that we have found that the drivers are more careful because they have their kids in the car. My question is about the driveway. Like, would you make it so that it's a one-way, or how could you even help the neighborhood situation by making?
Correct, yeah,
We actually modified, as a result of a series of meetings we had with various neighbors, all which were very polite and constructive. We modified our site plan, and either Greg or Kurt can kind of tell you what we did to address enhancements to the ingress and egress.
Yeah.
You wanna go over that?
Yeah, if he wants to slide back to the site plan, so we basically had where the main entrance is today on the upper part of the page. You can use that one, that's good. As a two-way and an entry and exit. And it was it was a dead end, and there was a separate lot where to the lower left of the screen is where those spaces are. You had to go in and out, so there were two entrances, but they were fully accessed, so you can go in and out of both, but they were both dead ends. The roadway connecting them there, that's there today and is now on the plan, was missing from the original site plan. The main concern with that layout was all the U-turns when it did get a little busy inside, but B, was also the exits did not have proper sight lines to the left. See traffic coming towards you from the left. The sight lines would have went across the neighbor's property and would have needed a site easement.
Recording in progress.
Take everything into consideration. Now it's a much better movement, so you're entering and you're exiting just like you did from the bank, except you don't have the second entry that was much closer to the stop sign, which was a problem because that would get blocked every now and then if a car is at the stop sign. Now you no longer have that issue. We haven't seen cars backed up blocking that entry driveway.
And the other thing it did, which Greg, because Chairman Noonan wanted us to make sure we covered it, it resolved our sightline issue. And of course, this has all been reviewed now by the engineering department and the sight lines are shown in your plans, but you know.
Yeah, we have one coming up about sight.
Yeah, so we'll talk about sight lines, but that was another thing that we did.
So now it's one-way circulation. There's no friction of cars coming back at you the other way. You enter, you exit, and you're all flowing in the same direction, which makes things operate more efficiently and safer as well.
And there would be signs posted, do not enter.
Yeah, and lane markings, pavement markings with the arrows showing.
Commissioner Seaver.
And like you said, not only is it predictable, it's predictable operations, right? It's for the most part, every now and then someone else is going to grab the kids and, the guardian or the mom or the pop who usually drives, but everyone is familiar with.
Commissioner Seaver.
Yeah. I guess I have a couple of thoughts. First being that, look, if I lived in this area, and I know a lot of these people in the audience, who live in this area. If my bank was that close to me, I'd be there, right? So I guess my first question before I get to my next point is, when you look at the traffic, it's unpredictable when you have a bank versus more predictability with this facility that's going in, right? They drop kids off, they pick kids up. Have you looked at, the percentage of the people that are customers of that bank and how long they stay at that bank? Because it's not just about online banking. It's, because I live in that area, I might have my mortgage there, I might have my business account there, whatever the case might be. So the longevity of the time they spend at that bank is probably also unpredictable, correct? Okay. So look, I would love to have my bank as close if I lived in this area. Well, that's no longer the case. And my second point being that, what is the alternative to your point? What is the alternative? And I can tell you, living in the Stratfield section of Fairfield, I fought for years as a former RTM member to prevent a CVS or a Walgreens going into the corner of Stratfield Road and Fairfield Woods Road. And guess what went in there? A Goddard daycare center. And guess what? It's very predictable. It's very predictable. So, what is the alternative is what I ask. Right? What is the alternative? Can you put a residence there? Is someone willing to put a residence there? I mean, other than that, and
it's zoned for business.
It's zoned for business. So
everybody has to draw their own conclusions, but
I empathize with the neighbors about this, but I just asked the question, what is the alternative? And I'm done.
I mean, the only thing I would add to that, not to believe, but I have the whip marks from Walgreens, because that was mine. And then I did the daycare center. And what was refreshing there was the Stratfield neighborhood that had been vigilant with regard to the Walgreens found the daycare facility to be a good compromise in terms of other potential uses, which was the point I was trying to make to Commissioner Ford. I wish we could have a meeting of the minds on that here because I do think it's still true.
I have one follow-up question.
Mr.
Hold
Chair.
on, let me go down the line here,
Yeah.
yeah. Commissioner Randolph.
Mr. Del Rio, you're earning your money tonight. So I've got 4 questions. So one, in the plan here, can you tell me, by eliminating that driveway on the plan south, have you improved the safety condition of that roadway?
I would say yes.
Is it a qualified yes? Is it an absolute yes?
I would say most traffic engineers would agree with me and yeah,
And could you explain why?
you're reducing a conflict point.
And
Not only are you reducing a conflict point, you're reducing the right conflict point, which is, you know, if you said you're taking away the northern one and you're making the southern one the main entrance, I would say, you know, maybe not so much, right? But that one is the problem, right? You just came out of a stop controlled intersection. And then I'm gonna make a left. You're gonna get rear-ended. You have a lot more of a chance of getting rear-ended while you're waiting. And you don't have that gap every time because there could be a car with a stop sign. You're pretty much blocked. The second one is almost never blocked. You know, the queues of cars are generally about 3 deep typically.
so, yeah, and just so everyone here knows, I ride my bicycle through this intersection 4 or 5 times a week. So I know this intersection, and I've lived in town for decades, so I know this intersection very well. So eliminating this, that point makes it a safer intersection, because that's, right now it's dangerous because it's so close to the stop sign. Right. Okay. I'm gonna get harder with my questions.
There's no way to tell from review of the crash data
Right.
what the contribution of that driveway is, but there certainly has been a fair share of
That's a bad place to put a
crashes
driveway,
at that intersection on that approach. That's what I can say.
Right.
However, when we get to the crash data, we'll talk about this a little more. The 2 driveways that are being left open have 0 since 2017 crashes in front of them to today. So all the crashes on Hill Farms and Hillside have been at the intersection or other locations, not in front of either one of our driveways.
Either one of
Just
the-
usually we go back 3 years,
either-
we're going back.
Either one of the 2 driveways that will remain. Yep, but that driveway you're eliminating makes it a safer intersection. My questions are gonna get harder here. So if this were I'm not gonna even say convenience store, a restaurant, what percentage increase would ITE, and put you on the spot here, based upon the square footage of this building, would the traffic volume be? Would it be 50%, double?
I don't have that off the top of my head and
You mean from the daycare, Commissioner?
Yes,
but as compared to a daycare or as opposed to the bank?
compared to a daycare, yeah.
Oh, they would all be higher. That I can say confidently.
I know they're higher, but double.
Percentage wise, I can't say, but
So-
I would say in the order of magnitude of the bank, if not worse.
So if this were a convenience store, for example, triple?
No, I don't know if I would say triple, but you know, on a daily basis, yes, yeah, probably. I'm
On a daily
already
basis.
40% lower than the bank.
Yep.
So I wouldn't say triple. I'm not gonna put anything on the public record that's as a guess to that.
Well, right, but it's a permitted use, a retail location. is
Significantly higher.
would be significantly higher, and a daycare is a relatively low use, just to, I'm
Very
basically
much,
repeating what I've heard.
very much so.
So I know you're a traffic engineer and you guys unfortunately ignore this issue, sidewalks. Why are we not considering putting sidewalks in here? I've read through the literature here, people, it's a concern of I don't know if the people in the room are the ones who wrote the letters. It's a concern in this area. There is a semi-pedestrian oriented area adjacent to this. Was considering sidewalks in your purview, or was that the architects?
No, we had dialogue with town officials with regard to the sidewalks and not to speak for them or anyone else, but I think the input that we got was it's considered sort of a rural area. So there was some sense that sidewalks would be appropriate there because of the character of the area. Secondly, there was concern that they would be practically speaking, they would not practically, as a matter of fact, they'd be sidewalks to nowhere. You know, they would perimeter our site and then they would end. So that was the feedback we got, but that, you know, that's consideration for you.
Have you spoken to members of the community about this?
About sidewalks, we had numerous meetings with members of the neighborhood. As I said, all cordial and constructive. I do not recall sidewalks coming up.
Okay, because many of the comments were regarding pedestrian safety.
Yeah. I mean, our, you know, and I'm not arguing the issue of sidewalks with you at all. I'm just saying our use where people will come in, drop off their children and leave. We're not expecting to have much by way of pedestrian traffic in terms of our children. I can't tell you that couldn't happen, you know, it is a neighborhood, but we didn't get positive feedback in terms of the practicality of sidewalks at this location because of the factors I mentioned. That's why
Coffee shop next door, nobody would walk from the coffee shop there.
That's why we didn't include it.
Well, but there is a coffee shop next door.
There is a coffee shop.
Yeah, so I'm just suggesting that be open to further consideration. Now, here's my hard question, because it's outside the scope of this. Obviously, this is an intersection that people are concerned about safety. The safety seems to be related to the town's roads. Has there been any consideration of creating a bump out there? Any suggestion of a traffic calming measure? The roads here, you know, like I said, I ride my bike there. For decades, I've ridden my bike there. It's a dangerous intersection, especially during commuter times when people use it as a cut through, which happens. Was that ever a part of the conversation? Because clearly that's one of the main concerns is this area is, and it's outside the scope of the daycare, but you guys are working on it. It's like many other issues. We've kicked a hornet's nest by looking at something where there's an issue in the town. Did that come up as part of this process, or is there an opportunity to address
it didn't
the concerns of the community that this is a dangerous intersection?
I mean, look, there's two separate issues at play here. If one, you know, again, having been on the police commission for 8 years, clearly, if the neighborhood felt and the neighborhood representatives, RTM and otherwise, felt that they wanted to bring what they considered to be concerns about this intersection to the police commission, I think that would be certainly totally appropriate, and I can't speak for the current police commission, but they meet once a month and they have what they call traffic surveys, which are a fancy name for neighbors coming to the police commission with concerns, and then the police commission and their professionals addressing them if they feel it's appropriate. So, but I wouldn't want to tie our proposal to solving what may be an existing intersection issue in the town, if that's how people feel, especially when we're not doing anything, as I pointed out, that's going to exacerbate that problem. Indeed, we're reducing traffic by 43% from this site. So I'm not, you know, I don't know what to say beyond that. If it's something that the community feels, or if the commission feels that the police commission should look at, that's certainly something that in the course of your, you know, you've done things like that before, where you've, as part of an overall decision, asked your staff or on your behalf to recommend to another town agency that they look at some collateral issue. That's certainly within your purview.
Well, it seems to be a lot of much of the feedback is on the danger of the intersection, and we know correlation isn't causation, but your improvement of that intersection is correlation with a community problem, and if perhaps there's an opportunity to address both of those at the same time.
And the other thing I don't know is, and I don't know if Greg would have anything, I do know from my time on the police commission, although I'm not a traffic engineer, but many times we were advised by traffic engineer professionals that what might be perceived as a good idea, like a speed bump or something like that, was not something that was considered to be a safety measure that would improve a situation and might actually exacerbate problems. I don't know that stuff.
I don't think anyone other than a traffic engineer should come up with a solution, but this group collectively should come up with the desire to address the problem. Right, and I don't, if we start talking about speed bumps or anything specific, we may be going down the wrong road unless a professional engineer looks at it Right, and perhaps this is an opportunity to work with the town to do that. What you're doing, you're fixing the curb cuts there, redo the curbs. Are you redoing all the curbing there?
I believe,
No, just the corner?
We're just closing that existing curb cut and then realigning where we have our two curb cuts, but nothing beyond that.
But doing some sort of curb realignment, this would be a good time to do it?
For the overall road you're speaking of, potentially. But we're talking about a much larger project than this development.
But Mr. Del Rio is gonna address as part of his situation, safety issues here, so maybe we go on.
Let me go down the line again.
There are a
with some
couple of
questions,
slides
and then I will say this, it's nearly 8:30, curfew's at 10. I wanna get to public comment as well. I don't want you to rush. I wanna point out everybody that time is nearly 8:30 and curfew at 10 and we.
For my presentation in chief, I will have nothing after Mr. Del Rio. He is my cleanup hitter and I will defer everything for my final summary and rebuttal.
I saw the time and figured I would say it, so
But
Commissioner.
he does, I think he can, perhaps indirectly, but we could address Commissioner Randolph a little bit, because he does have some things in terms of safety.
Let me go down the line and then you can continue. Commissioner Harris.
Yeah, I just want to make a statement and a few statements and something what Commissioner Randolph kind of struck me. First of all, I don't think we should judge this based on what the alternative could be. It could be an 830G project, could be an ice cream shop. But we have to, I think, remember this is the application in front of us and this is what we have to judge and render a decision on. We have an applicant here who wants to have a business in Fairfield and address a childcare need that we need that needs to be addressed in the state and in our town. And we want the neighbors here, I think, want a safe application. They want something that probably blends in with their neighborhood, that is safe. So I think, Commissioner Randolph, raises a good point. Is this an opportunity where we could come and have a meeting of the minds where both parties kind of win? So we're not pitting neighbors against applicants and vice versa, because maybe this is a way to address the safety issue.
Yeah, I mean, two things I respond to. First, not to be argumentative, but I don't necessarily,
Be argumentative.
I wouldn't. I don't necessarily agree that as part of your statutory function, you shouldn't, in your planning role, consider alternatives that you have indicated are permitted uses in the zone when weighing on application. It's true, you look at the application that's in front of you, but I think you can do that when you're looking at issues as the type we're discussing tonight in the context of, there are some planning decisions here to be made. That's number one. Number two, I'm not in any way, I'm a little, look, if there's a perception by the commission and the neighborhood, and I belonged in the neighborhood 2 miles distance, but I'm on that intersection every day. I don't know what to say beyond the fact that it should be brought to the attention of the police commission. And we, meaning my clients, would certainly be supportive and work collaboratively with the neighborhood as a new neighbor in the neighborhood to address anything to the police commission that might warrant their consideration and improvement of the situation. I don't know that, I mean, I'm saying that for this record, and that's, if it's a problem for the neighbors and we want to be good neighbors and, we have reached out to the neighbors and they've been cordial with us, certainly. But beyond that, I think it's within the jurisdiction of the police commission. And I would again emphasize that while we want to work with the neighbors in the spirit of Commissioner Randolph and yourself say, at least we're not coming in here with a use that's going to exacerbate what is perceived to be an unsafe situation.
Commissioner Levy.
If I scaled it correctly, it looks like there's about 120 feet between the Hill Farm entrance and the stop sign for a car going easterly on Hill Farm, which would mean there's probably room for 6 to 8 cars now that you've closed off the eastern entrance before it would block the intersection. Did your study look at the likelihood of more than 6 or 8 vehicles being stopped at that stop sign, or whether that's a concern as far as that intersection being blocked and somebody not being able to make a left turn Hill Farm?
Sort of is the answer to that. So in the morning, there's very light eastbound traffic on Hills Farm Road. The the main direction is westbound as people are leaving the community and going to work. In the evening, it's heavier coming back. And the evening is where I've done some observations personally. I was there from 5 to 6 today, and I have pictures. It was never more than 3 cars, and you had to wait a long time to get the 3 cars queued. So it was not reaching back. We've never seen it. When my other engineers were out doing the site observations, that was the main question, the queuing at the stop signs. Everybody says roughly 3 or 4 cars in all directions. We've never seen anything.
The other thing that Commissioner Levy, I wanna point out is ours is not a operation where people are coming into the parking lot and then stopping and dropping their kids off and, a staff person comes out together. As was pointed out earlier, we park and the parent would park and then take the child in. Before we're finished, we did, as we shared with the neighbors at numerous of our meetings, we laid out to them how our arrivals occur over, say, a 2-hour period from 7:30 to 9:30. And we showed them, based upon, again, the experience at 4 different facilities, so many at between 7:30 and 7:45, so many between 7:45 and 8 o'clock, all because parents have different needs and so on. And we extrapolated that. And you have this chart. It's part of the record, I think. I submitted it weeks ago. It shows that in each of those situations, assuming those number of parents, what the availability of parking is in excess, and there's no time.
I don't think it's in there.
It's at the end, I think, of.
It's in your materials, it's in it.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll get to it. There it is. There you go.
Yeah, she's got it.
Okay, so that's you have that, but if you look at it, what it shows basically is we broke the time off for an hour and a half in terms of arrivals, which seemed to be the main concern. We set forth how many families, teachers, administrators would be arriving during that 15-minute period. And then and how many spaces they would be utilizing. And then how many excess spaces we would have. By the way, based upon our experience, the average time that a parent would be parked, walk their children into the school or their child, say good morning and leave is approximately 6 minutes. But to do this in a more conservative manner, okay, we broke it into 15. But what it shows is, again, what it shows. That is, at no point during the peak drop-off would we have a deficit of spaces. And that means that somebody's gonna come in and they're gonna find a space, okay? So more on that later in my rebuttal, but that is part of the record.
Commissioner Ford.
Briefly, Mr. Fallon, you brought up Goddard School. I couldn't recall who brought that application, but you represented the Goddard School in that.
We actually brought in a prior owner who got a daycare facility approved and then never executed it. So Goddard could just slip into their shoes. Goddard didn't come before you, but the predecessor did.
But they did come back like a year and a half ago to expand internally and.
Yeah, I didn't do that. Oh, no, I did. I'm sorry. Yes, I apologize.
I remember at the hearing, there were some neighbors, they were not opposed to it, if I recall, and I don't, I compare this to that application because obviously similar use, but it's also kind of analogous because the property was dormant for so long. And so there were no trips, and I think the neighbors got used to not having any kind of commercial in and out activity. And so you can kind of see how it's similar here. But I live, over in that part of town as well. So I experience, especially, in the mornings and the afternoons, the traffic flow of the Goddard School. This is 70 students, right, roughly? And Goddard School is probably bigger, right? Does anyone remember how?
I cannot recall. I'm sure
It's a bigger facility, I think.
either Mr. Went or I can get you that number from before the hearing is closed.
I'll do the only reason. I was just saying, just because I don't know if it's comparing apples to apples or not. I just, I remember the neighbors on the second application to expand it, saying that the traffic was not as bad as they thought it was going to be. And those are my words, not theirs.
We did have the non-opposition, we had the support, the non-opposition of our neighbors when we did come back for that small expansion.
And not to say that that's, gonna be the case here. I just, when you're trying to review these applications, you need some sort of reference point. So that's the only reason why I bring that up.
Del Rio, why don't you finish your presentation?
Sure.
Thank you.
If we could go back to the following slide that has parking, yeah, I think right before this. Right there. So we're finished with traffic generation, now we're talking about the parking generation. So from the town code, the requirement would be 24 spaces. We're providing 28 spaces with 2 ADA accessible spaces. If we did the parking generation using the ITE parking generation manual, it would come up with 25 for this size facility and the number of students. So again, we're above not only the town requirement, but also sort of, the ITE standard for a similar facility. So, that's the summary with the parking situation and the turnover. I won't, I think I'll wait till specific questions to address any of the parking concerns and are there enough spaces? What I will say now is that many of the problems that people have seen and are projecting onto this site is they did have a parking shortage and didn't have enough parking. I know one facility that has parking that matches the number of employees. Well, it doesn't take much to figure out that that facility is not gonna have enough parking to totally handle the ins and outs of the parent drop off and pickup. But if you properly size it, which we believe this is, and it's even got a little bit of a cushion, not to mention there's probably 2 spaces on site or 2 areas on site along the southern edge of the building that could also be used for, if there ever was a demand greater than the supply, that they could do pickups and drop offs. But again, John's observations are his quote before was similar to our observations at other facilities. It's more of a 6 minute typical turnaround average. There are some less, there are some more. 15 minutes is what they used in their table and their chart, so I consider that very conservative. I also consider the 70 students conservative because that's 70 cars. You're not gonna get 70 cars, right? There's a brother and a sister in there. There's somebody who didn't show up on that particular day. So it's usually, a percentage less than, whatever the full enrollment is. They're not there every day. Next slide. I mentioned, just the sight lines earlier. So keep going all the way down till you get to there. Yeah. So there's 390 linear feet is the required sight line based on the speeds and the geometry. And you can see more than 390 feet in both directions exiting the facility. So the proper sight lines are provided. So there's no issue with sight lines on this project.
Are you able to give the exact amounts going each way, or is it kind of like so far out?
Good, but the table will be quite.
No, that's fine, but
We can follow up with the exact number.
that's what I'm used to seeing. I that was what I gathered, but I just,
We'll get you that number.
I didn't want it to be 391, for example.
We'll get you the exact number.
But you're saying it's out there with a stop sign
you're
intersection there.
the one to the left, you're seeing way past the stop sign, so really you should only go to the stop sign.
Okay, but when you say it's greater than 3, you're talking maybe like 500-ish or more? No, but it's.
Order of magnitude, those 2 directions are very straight.
That's fine. That's what there's an elevation. But, okay,
Slide.
thank you.
That was just the bottom of the sight line. So zoom in a little bit on that so everyone can see. That is just the sight lines in a table format, so I think we can skip that. And then we have the crash data.
We would go out and see what the average speed was as far as
Yeah, we did, well, we did a speed study on Hill Farms Road when we were gonna have the exit there. We didn't do a speed study here because we have, pretty much endless sight lines, and it works for, what we did was 25 plus 10, which is what you typically use if you don't do the radar and the speed study. So
and again, an intersection with 4 stop
with the
signs.
stops,
there.
you're approaching a stop sign, so. Yep. So at the time of our study, it was early 2024, so the data that was available is 3 years, 2021 through 2023. 17 crashes all occurred at or near the intersection, the stop controlled intersection. You can see a summary of those crashes in front of you. Most of them are property damage only. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them resulted in some type of injuries. The other thing I'm highlighting, 2021 was a little bit of a busier year for some reason. And if you look at the first 2, they were on the same day. The third one was 2 days later. I haven't had time to look. I'm guessing maybe there was a snowstorm or something, because that's kind of a cluster. But other than that, you see them spread out over time pretty well. We did look since the end of 2023, so there's been 3 more crashes in 2024, which is not included in this. Again, they were all at the intersection or not in front of our driveways. I think one of them was further west on Hill Farms Road, in front of one of the residents' driveways, but not our driveway. The other thing I'm highlighting is, the percent of crashes that happen during our peak arrivals and departure times. So 3 out of the 17 occurred during typical school peaks. And then another 2 out of the 17 occurred during the commuter peak. So out of the 17, 5 occurred during the times when we would have our peak activity. And again, not to, be a dead horse, but we're generating less traffic than the bank, so that rate would go down. You would expect it to go down a little bit, but the 5 out of 17 would hopefully go down in the future, because you have less traffic. That's it for that slide, and I think that ends, we talked about the parking schedule. And that's it for the parking and traffic.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we in answer to Commissioner Ford's question, I looked at the materials that we have on our 2023 expansion for the Goddard School, and the parking study for that application was based on a maximum capacity of 146.
147. Thank you. Questions from Mr. Del Rio, or can Attorney Fallon?
No, I'm gonna reserve my summary and rebuttal comments till after public comment at this point, and in the interest of the commission's time.
That'd be great, thank you. Final questions? Excuse me. That'll end the initial presentation portion of the application. Next up is public hearing. I'll start with members present, though I'm not even sure if there's anybody joining us remotely. We'll start with present. See 2 attorneys. I just want to get a sense if they're presenting tonight. Green, are you presenting tonight?
Yeah, I hope to present tonight, but I'd like to refer to some.
That's fine. I appreciate that. I saw Attorney Russo. Attorney Russo, you have clients tonight for public comment? I just want to get a sense of who's up.
We're good. We're okay.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you, Attorney Green. If you're represented by counsel, I'd ask you to let your counsel present with you, but right now I'll open it up to public comment. Anybody that wishes to speak on this application, if you can just please come up. Hold on, let's see. It's gonna be normally a first come, first serve. Just maybe start a queue and see if that's okay. You can just come up, give your name, your address, keep your comments germane to the application, please. We need to start a list, we will, or at least, let's see, keep a line and people can sit down, but keep an idea who's next. need a list, we will do so. Public comment, our curfew is till 10 o'clock, we'll go as long as needed. If you've submitted anything in writing to us, you read those, feel free to rely just upon the emails that you've written to us. You don't need to read them into the record. Doesn't mean you can't. I'm not gonna stop anybody from that. Again, this is public comments for you to get a chance to voice your concerns, but you don't need to be too duplicative. So, good evening.
Hi, I'm Katie Rosamower. This is my husband James Mower. We're residents of Fairfield. We live at 1685 Jennings Road in the university area. We're also alphabet parents, and we currently commute to Hampton to send our kids to daycare. We moved to Fairfield, both born and raised in Connecticut. We moved to Fairfield 4 years ago. We originally took our kids out of alphabet thinking we would find a suitable daycare. But there weren't many options for daycares that served infants. A lot of them were for preschool age and only a few days a week, a few hours a week. We both work full time, so that didn't really work for us. And nothing compared to Alphabet. They have an incredible food program. Our kids got cod and roasted potatoes and squash from the garden this week and grilled chicken with a feta cucumber tomato salad. Sorry, I digress. They have a beautiful vegetable garden and a pollinator garden and a very organic play area that wasn't turf, and that really mattered to us. So we begged to get back on the wait list, and we commute over 30 minutes a day to go. So we would love for there to be an alphabet. A lot of the places we looked at had a 2-year wait list, and they weren't even accepting us on it. So there's definitely a need. And we have dropped our kids off for almost 4 to 5 years. It's a relatively quick drop off and pickup. I think we're pretty conservative drivers. We have precious cargo in our car. There's no teenagers that are dropping their kids off every once in a while. I think in the 5 years we've been there, we've dropped off, our grandparents have done it. They're pretty conservative drivers. And James, I'll let you talk to the rest of it.
Yeah, I think to put it in perspective, so we have a 5-year-old son and we have a 2-year-old daughter. And it's maybe indicative that we have kids because our notes are in crayon. So for 5 years, we've had our son. For 4 years, we went to Alphabet, and as Katie indicated, that for one of them, we tried to find something closer to home, but we couldn't. So then we returned. And so I know parking is an issue. And so the number of trips we make a year, so roughly probably 250 trips. We have to pick up our kids, we drop them off. That's 500 times, and times 4 is 2,000 trips we've made to Alphabet. And we have never had an issue where there's been any issue with parking. It's on Dixwell Avenue in Hamden. If it were backed up, that would be concerning because it's a main road. And we have never had one issue in all of that time. I think there was a question as to where would the parents come from? We travel all the way up to Hamden to send our kids there. We have talked to some of our neighbors.
They all want to go, and they've asked to be connected.
We're gonna have to become
Amy.
recruiters
Yeah.
for Alphabet. All of our friends want to go there and everything like that.
And some have considered driving to Hampton.
And the other thing we're happy to do, obviously there's some concern, there are neighbors here, to the extent that it would be helpful, we're happy to address any questions that you would have. As parents, maybe we have a different perspective. We're happy to give that. And maybe the final point, I know that there's this 72 student number, and people probably translate to the number of cars. We have 2 kids. A number of people have multiple kids. And as Katie said, the people who will be driving there are driving their 1 or 2 kids. So I think if you could have anyone in your area that you want to be a safe driver, is people with kids in their car. So that is our spiel.
But we are happy to leave our contact information with Amy or their lawyer if anyone wants to ask us any questions that are from Fairfield.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Sharab. I live on Roundel Road in Fairfield, about 5 minutes away from the site of this plan. I'm also a child psychiatrist at the Yale Child Study Center, and I could easily testify today to how an institution, I don't want to call it a childcare facility. I think it's an intervention. As you know, children 0 to 5 around here, there isn't much, and I can say that professionally, but I'm not going to comment on that today. I'm here as a parent of a 2.5-year-old. My son is 2.5 years old. I've been on a wait list for a daycare in Fairfield for the last 2.5 years. He comes with me to New Haven every single day. He's on he's in the car with me for 30 minutes that way, this way. I calculate he's on the road on I-95 for 500 hours at this point. I-95 being the most dangerous highway on the state with who knows how many crashes every single day. I don't think it's benefiting his development in any way to be in that car every single day. And it's really placed a tremendous strain on us as a family for us to have to take him just for the sake of finding a place for him to go. I had to make a decision to not practice in this neighborhood and stay in New Haven because that's where my son has daycare. My wife, who's an infectious disease physician, who most certainly could have benefited this community tremendously, could not move her practice here either because of our child having to go to New Haven. We drop our child off in New Haven to the daycare there. The parking there is on South Frontage Road. If you've been to New Haven and seen South Frontage Road, it is a crazy intersection leading into I-95, and we make it work every single day with just 2 parking spots. And in terms of speaking about what our family has had to experience, I do my dry cleaning in this neighborhood, in that part of the community. We get our wine, we get our coffee, we get our chocolate there. My dog goes to the vet there. My 2.5-year-old is asking, why can't I go to school here? And so this is why I had to come here, talk about my son, and just want to thank you for your time today. Thank you. Good evening.
Hello. My name is Babis Pavamartho. I'm a fairly new Fairfield resident. I moved here in 2023. Been here for 1 year.
What's your address, sir?
225 Comfort Drive.
Thank you.
So I moved to Connecticut 3 years ago, and I work at Yale. Me and my wife work at Yale. We moved to Hamden, and we sent our kids to Alphabet. So we've been very, very happy with Alphabet. We decided to move to Fairfield, and I told my wife, look, I'm not taking the kids out of Alphabet. I don't want to deal with finding different daycares. Okay, sure. So we moved to Fairfield. First time I go up to drop them off, I said, that's it. The commute is too much. I'm gonna try to find something here. I cannot do that every day. So, I looked and I had some options, but to be honest, I could not, take my kids out of Alphabet to bring them to Fairfield because I couldn't find what Alphabet was providing to my kids anywhere here. So the food, the outdoor, the whole environment, I was really happy. So because of that, I'm commuting every day. I'm taking my kids to Alphabet. So I don't have too much to add to what the other people say. So I'm very, very happy. I think it'll be like a tremendous benefit to Fairfield to have Alphabet here. And in terms of the parking lot, I've never had issues. I think they're doing a fantastic job managing parking spaces and how cars are coming in and out. So I'm expecting they're going to do the same here. So say it's full support for that.
Thank you. Good evening.
Evening. Denise Fernandez, 2036 Reading Road, Fairfield.
Thank you.
A popular road. Needless to say, I have great concerns about this daycare going into this location. We've had 2 deaths on Reading Road. 4-mile stretch, downhill. The next road parallel like that is Hillside. The bank that was there prior to this situation was for private clients. It was not your average bank like we have on Black Rock Turnpike or downtown Fairfield. If they had 10 customers per day, it was mostly because it was for investments, lockbox, etc. The traffic flow came in from Hills Farm and went out onto Hillside. But at the most, they had was like 10 people per day. That intersection of Hills Farm and Hillside has been a disaster, no different than Reading Road, has been a disaster. My concern in seeing this traffic flow, and granted, somebody was there tonight, this is not the average time of year. You wanna see the traffic on that intersection, come in September at 7:30 in the morning and watch what happens then. Dr. Marsh's office is relocating for several reasons, but I know them well. I've been in the neighborhood for 17 years. There is no respect for speed. And you have a playground with 2-year-olds on that hillside. We have tractor trailers coming down. Reading Road hasn't even started the changes that it needs to control the traffic that's come down there after 2 deaths. We just had a pilot for 1 rotary. Greenfield Hill is a neighborhood, but we have traffic coming in from Westport and Easton. We've had tractor trailers coming down roads that don't even belong on that road. And if they're not gonna come down Reading, they're gonna come down Hillside. I don't know where the demographics came and the need for daycare in Greenfield Hill, because I don't know anybody that was ever surveyed. This is not a setup like we have with Fairfield Country Day, where the building is set back off of the road and we have a driveway that goes in one way and comes out the other. Hunt Ridge, same thing. They sit far back off of Brookside and the families there have to drive in, drop off and go out the other side. That's not the same situation for this building. They're coming in on Hill Farm, they're going out on Hill Farm. Somebody's gonna be making a left and somebody's gonna be cutting through. I think there needs to be serious consideration in not allowing this to happen. Because now we're talking about kids. That's been the big issue on Reading Road with the Dwight School. The speed limit was at 25 and they're still flying through, even though the cops are on the roads. Now we're talking about little kids. We don't need another fatality in Greenfield Hill. The cops cannot be everywhere. And despite the signs, we cannot have speed bumps. It's already gone through the police commission for Reading Road. We're having 1 rotary that's gonna get installed. We're waiting for LTA, and there need to be 4. That's how long it takes. But I don't think this committee wants to have the death of a child on their hands. Because these cars are driving over onto grass areas. Megan Ravis was on the grass, Mara Lady Morel was on the grass. And they were at times when there was nobody out. Mara Lady Morel was at 7:30 at night when there was nobody on the road all day. Not even the landscapers were out that day. I'm gonna urge you not to allow this to go through for the safety of children. We have plenty of other properties in Fairfield that this daycare can go in. Mara Lady Morel was my future sister-in-law. And I knew Megan Ravis. It is not the location. What should go in there is really not the concern at this point, but the safety of children is the concern. And having a play yard on Hillside and having people come in and out of a driveway that's on Hills Farm with traffic going in 2 directions is not the safest thing.
Thank you. Good evening.
Evening. My name is Dr. Dorothy Lay. I live at 648, excuse me, 648 Hill Farm Road. I can see the stop sign down by the vet from my driveway. May I pass some things out?
You may, if you can just give it to Commissioner Ford, he'll pass it down.
Don't have an.
That's fine, we'll share. We'll give that to, we'll give one to Pio.
While that's being passed, I can just some things that came up. I was told by the town of Fairfield that we could not put in speed bumps because the snow plows can't go over them. The other thing was about the bank. And whoever said, we don't have a bank that close, yes, that's true. We did love that bank. That bank was almost always empty. There were only two cashiers. And one of them would be in the main office, and then if someone did come through the drive-through, would run out. And basically, it was closed for lack of activity. So now I kind of like to talk about my lived experience versus the statistics. I've lived in that house for 51 years. And if you would like to look at the first picture that I have here. This is my lived experience every morning. Without any nursery school, without anything else going on. Now, when the bus comes through, I took this, I got across the street from my driveway because otherwise I couldn't see the whole, count the cars. There's a lot of cars there. Now, on the other side of the stop sign here, go down, continue down Hill Farm, the school bus comes up towards us. When the school bus comes up towards us, it stops. All traffic stops in every direction. And so this line now that you see is tripled by the time the school bus has gone through. So there's an awful lot going on here that is just our lived experience day by day without adding anything to it. So it's very concerning that we have to wait even longer to get out of the driveways. And yes, we do have accidents, and yes, they're mostly fender benders. But that's another story. Now, my real concern is, I did a little investigation and asked the properties involved if I could go on the property and see what was going on. Because I was very kind of perplexed about this slope the garden's going to be. And when we had gone to the meeting with the people, they had said that we're gonna have a garden there. Lovely. If you look at the next picture, you'll see that this is the bottom of the slope. I call it a cliff. I could not climb up or down that slope without serious injury. I've had a lot of practice walking, I'm not 2 years old. The tree to the left is in the corner, the back corner of the parking lot. And it does get a little better as you go towards the street, but not much. So my question is, how are they going to get staff and 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds down that hill to get to their garden? This is, as you can see, a very wooded area. And I don't know if any of you are gardeners. Ain't gonna grow much under a tree. I don't understand how, I was thinking they were gonna have to clear the land to make a garden. Apparently not. And I saw one of the, a couple of the slides that looked like they had a very long set of stairs. I don't know if it's true. I don't know how they're gonna get down there. I mean, you know, helicopter, parachute, I didn't know. And it looks like a very, very long walk, which it is. And how are you gonna get 2 4-year-olds up and down a pair of steps like that? If that it was in case what I saw on the screen, I wasn't sure that I got to see that at all. And my concern, you know, I've been living with this driveway thing for a while. It's not too bad. Except people get grumpy. They scream and yell. include an area where the children could hear them. Also exposed to an area where the children can observe an accident, which may be traumatic to some children, just to see that happen. But I'm very concerned about this garden. How are you gonna get to it? There's no sun there. You're gonna have to take the trees down. And I would not call it a slope, I would call it a cliff. I am concerned about the kids. We have to protect our children. And these are our children. At that school, they are our children to protect when they're in our neighborhood. And I just feel very, very upset that I don't see a lot of protection going on here. It's a wonderful organization that they have. I think they picked the wrong spot. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kendall Bolt and this is my wife Madison Bolt. We live at 799 Hill Farm Road, directly adjacent to the property to the west.
Right next door.
So there's quite a few concerns that we have. I'll piggyback on the hill. The hill is probably like a 25% grade or more. It is dirt. So I don't know if they've thought about what the kids are gonna do. Are they gonna dig in that? Are they gonna play in that? Right below it are the wetlands. I saw somewhere on the plans that there was bark planned. All of that is like a flood zone. It's all gonna go right into our backyard through into the wetlands. So I don't know what their plan is for that.
That's where the playground is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Majority of it is hill and there's a small patchy grass of land. A couple of the other things that we saw during the presentation is that there's the proposed water underneath the parking lot and then the runoff. I don't know if you guys saw that slide where the runoff looked like it was shooting into our backyard. That's a huge concern of ours because we do have wetlands in our backyard and we don't want to take that runoff as they've proposed. The other huge thing that I really want to touch on, I hear the concerns about needing a full-time daycare. We have 3 kids. We have a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old. We're really involved in the Greenfield Hill community. Our kids attend Dwight. My son is there, and then our 2 other kids go to Greenfield Hill Church Nursery School. So Goddard has been mentioned throughout the night. There's something that no one's really touching on here that I think is really important, the tuition of this school. You had mentioned that how are we sure that Fairfield community is actually going to be involved with this school? And that's a huge point that we need to bring to attention. The ballpark number that we've been told as there's been a meeting before all of this with the kind of proposed of what would be coming into the bank space was around $3,600 a month per student. So that comes out to $43,200 a year. We haven't talked tuition numbers at all. It's not fair to compare this to the Goddard School. It's not the same tuition. It's very different. The Goddard School, just in comparison, is around, for their most expensive program that's full-time, full-day, pre-K, the most expensive is $2,100 a month or $25,000 a year. So that's a substantial difference here. So yes, Goddard has a year wait list. Is this going to solve that problem? No, because this tuition is almost twice the price of that. This is being pitched as very exclusive with a private chef. It's not answering the needs that, yeah, maybe our community could use. We have a ton of preschools that are offering 9 to 12, potentially 9 to 2. Our school, Greenfield Hill Community, Greenfield Hill Church Nursery School, Hill Farm is right there. We have Trinity, we have Southport Congregational, we have Harbor Lights, we have several schools in our area. I think that's worth mentioning because I can hear that we're saying that this is solving the problem and it's not. We're anticipating not a ton of Fairfield residents will even be attending this school. We're thinking that people will be coming in from other towns such as Easton, New Canaan, Darien, Greenwich, who knows, Westport, so then we're bringing a whole other layer of traffic. The other thing that we went through, that crazy thing of the bank, my husband and I bought our house 2 years ago. That bank has been closed for 2
We
years.
bought it on a weekend, so we thought the road was very quiet. We had no idea what kind of cut through it was.
There's
We had no idea.
no kind of that whole thing, those false information that he showed everybody about a normal
43 or
bank
44% decrease, it's
just has
completely false.
never
There's
been
no
the
way.
case. We've lived there for 2 years and it's been empty. And before that, the bank closed because it was a very quiet bank from every neighbor that you are in the surrounding area. So comparing it to a commercial bank is just not accurate at all.
And also the type of bank it is. So like it was brought up, it was specifically for private clients. We can't go off the square footage for the traffic. It was a very specific floor plan for that building. It wasn't like Chase Bank built that property and said, we're gonna have this kind of bank in this spot. So the foot traffic and the car traffic, everything that was in there was very minimal compared to maybe one like you were saying on Post Road, completely different operation. Retail banking has been decreasing over the years. That's why they end up shutting the bank down. It was very minimal traffic for the neighborhood. From what we hear, it was closed when we moved in, but I think the concentration of traffic is really what we're scared about. It's the buses coming through, everybody coming through it between 7:30 and 9:30 in that window. To go and look tonight and say that there's only 3 cars at the stop sign.
When we're in August, when majority of our town, there's not many camps that are offered this time. A lot of people take their vacations during the month of August. This is a known thing if you have young children. So it's just not accurate. That's just simply false information. So what we're saying is like our son takes the public school bus. We're out there every morning. We had to change his bus route because at first he was going off of Bronson and it was so dangerous that we had to have him picked up in front of our house on Hill Farm Road. There is a line both ways every single morning when our son gets on that bus and we have to walk him right to our driveway and make sure he's safe because we have seen cars drive by. When this daycare comes, when my son is getting picked up, it is 110% going to affect the flow of traffic of that public school bus, which runs on a timely manner. It makes its way through Southport, up here, and then up to Dwight. That's a huge concern of ours. I know that it's been pitched that, oh, it'll be predictable. Unfortunately, those predictable times are when the whole community is rushing through that part of town, rushing through Hill Farm Road and then rushing home from Hill Farm Road. It's just the concentrated of traffic. We're fine during the day. It's very quiet on the weekends and daytimes. So that doesn't solve the answer in our perspective.
It makes it way worse.
Yeah, I think the tuition thing is something really, really to zone in on here, and how is this really answering the needs of our Fairfield community? And how many Fairfield residents are actually going to be using, how many Greenfield Hill residents will be actually using this facility?
When they say high quality, they mean affluent clientele.
I mean,
That's what
you're
they're
talking
saying.
nearly 85,000 a year if you have a brother and sister. That's a lot of money to send two siblings there. So again, this is a huge portion. I know it's not discussed about tonight, but this is something to really think about. In part, and I do understand what, the what ifs what could go in here, there could also be a great, what if there's an awesome attorney that wants to take place? Like there are other options that take place that don't go 6 inches from the lot line to squeeze in a playground. And it just doesn't seem, I understand the concept. Again, I have 3 very young kids. I've been in motherhood. I recognize that what they're trying to do, it's just simply not the right location for it. It's very busy. You guys know this. It's been a huge, headache as far as traffic, and having little ones it's just not the right spot.
And pitching it as a nature-based facility, literally on either side, there's 4 industrial dumpsters, like for commercial properties right there. How can you pitch that as nature-based? And then there's a car that caught on fire 2 weeks ago, right? Like 10 feet from where the playground's gonna be.
Yeah, it's just not a safe area for young children to be.
It's just really not, it's
What's
false.
really happening is that they wanted to get into Fairfield County to up their tuition prices. So they would benefit greatly from this because they're going to be making a ton of money off of the residents of whoever attends that school. And that's where you kind of start to say, wait a second, this isn't the wholesome picture that we're really getting.
It'd be one thing if you could park on the street and walk your child, but with 11 parking spots for 72 kids, the reason they can't hold special events is because there's not enough parking. There's definitely going to be massive backups, and especially with the school buses coming through.
Even with
It doesn't-
staggered parking, especially if you're hitting towns that are coming from
let's say New Canaan and they're on the Merritt and there's an accident and their time slot was 7:45 and they get there at 8:15, there's gonna be mess ups. And when you have 72 people attending,
And 11 parking spots for people.
yeah,
That's
and there's
it.
just no overflow. They're gonna be in front of our house on Hill Farm Road. So thank you for your time and
Yeah.
you had everything?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Question, sir,
Yeah.
sorry, you said a car fire, what was
Yeah,
it?
a car caught on
I have
fire.
a picture of it, so I'll be showing it to you guys.
It was
Yeah.
right across where the
I call the
proposed-
police almost weekly because people do not stop there and they fly through. And I encourage you all to go see the intersection. People get up to 60 miles an hour within less than 100 yards of our house,
We
like
walk
from the
our
stop sign
dog
to our house.
all
It
around
is
the
so dangerous. It's
community.
downhill.
It's really
And then
unsafe.
going uphill, they don't see the stop sign or they just choose not to and they blow right through it. And I call the police almost weekly to say, hey,
We're
can
on
you
like on
come
a
out?
waiting list to get one of those things flashing for, I have them, the police
We put up
park in
our
our
own signs that say
driveway so
slow
they can
down. I go out there and
pass
yell
them.
at people and I get flipped off and it's like,
I was
it's
pregnant.
not Fairfield residents. It's
It's not Fairfield, but I
Bridgeport,
was
yeah, it's
pregnant
Westport.
crossing on Hill Farm and someone flipped me off with a handicap sign in their car. I mean, it's just not the ideal place to have this facility. It's just, it's not, I wouldn't put my kids there.
I've tried to walk our dog to the vet with a stroller and it's taken me 15 minutes just to cross the street. 15 minutes, just to put it in reality.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No worries.
How are you guys doing today? I just wanted to show you that picture of the fire like 3 weeks ago. That's to the right is where their proposed playground's gonna be for 2-year-olds.
What was that?
A car exploded. So,
You fine.
yeah,
You email that to, what is it, TPC Commission at Fairfields,
yeah,
Connecticut,
I will get that information or I'll come into the office tomorrow.
just email it to them.
Yeah, great. So my name's Zach Clavana. I live at 255 Hillside Road, which is directly across the street from the proposed daycare.
I'm sorry, what was your address again?
255 Hillside Road. I've been to a few of these meetings over the past couple months and there's always a reoccurring theme that comes up and that's safety. I know a lot of you have lived in this neighborhood for a long time and many of you have seen it grow. And with that has come an influx of traffic. When my wife and I bought our house in Greenfield Hill, we were really attracted to the rural lifestyle. And it was a complete alternative to the stereotypical dense Connecticut suburbs that most of southern Connecticut has to offer. I'm here today to express my strong opposition to the proposed daycare at 161 Hillside Avenue. The location is unsuitable for a daycare due to its significant increase in traffic and noise it would generate. The adjacent four-way intersection is already notorious for accidents. There were 7 accidents from April to 2023 to April 2024. I obtained that information from Officer Jenkins, and I also communicated with him about putting speed bumps in. And apparently it's been something that's, people have been butting heads with the town and allowing that for years. Additionally, I have concerns with the parking arrangements. With 15 staff members and 72 children, the 28 parking spaces, 2 of them being handicapped, are inadequate. This will likely result in an overflow of parking onto the street, inconveniencing nearby residents. I'd like to know, and although the daycare said that there wouldn't be, events at the school, they quickly went back and said they're gonna have to do things differently. And so even if it is grade by grade, I have a 4-year-old, I have a 2-year-old, and I have an 8-week-old. When my 4-year-old graduates next year, my mom, my sister, my wife's sister, her mom, us, that's 5 cars for one kid, and I have a small family. So I need to know what they're planning on doing to make that be a seamless, not be a big issue for the community. I'm aware of the staggered parking plan, but how can that be regulated?
You know, will cars sit on the street and wait their turn when they arrive? And what happens if they arrive late due to excess traffic on the Merritt and 95? Proposed daycare contradicts the Greenfield Hill Village Improvement Society guidelines, which aim to maintain rural character of the area, something that's admired by residents and visitors. Section 12.5 states that the purpose of this district is to provide local neighborhoods with the needed and desirable convenient goods and services in a manner which will not be detrimental to the surrounding areas. And Janine, I believe you said you almost didn't purchase your house because it was right next to a daycare. That sounds pretty detrimental to me. The biggest investment of most people's lives, you know, limiting the number of people that potentially want to purchase your house. The use permitted in this zone shall be limited to those which will primarily serve the local neighborhood and are consistent with the purpose for which this district was designated. This project needs a special permit and completely goes against this. In my opinion, this project doesn't benefit the community, and a daycare with 72 kids enrolled is absolutely insane for the location. However, if the committee disagrees, I respectfully request you consider not allowing a commercial kitchen to be installed. Additionally, if this facility aims to serve the local community, I suggest guaranteeing a percentage of spots for children within Greenfield Hill and make the sidewalk improvements to the surrounding area due to heavy traffic. Thank you.
Yeah, it was, ma'am, do you wanna come up?
Bill wants to speak first, or? Okay, I'll be very quick, I promise. I live at 772 Hill Farm Road with my husband. We've been there 20
Sorry,
plus
your name?
years. Ally Cable, sorry. We've been there 20 plus years. We've raised our 3 kids. We just got back from dropping our youngest at Auburn. Hill Farm, yeah. We're right across from the side entrance to the Chase. And I was very worried about buying the house because of the commercial district. But my husband looked up everything in town and saw that there were guardrails, so we thought we'd be safe. Now we're here. Over the years, I watched the car traffic get really crazy. I blame it on Waze. I think it's led people through. If there's backup on the Merritt in 95, that's a whole different issue. But these days in the morning and evenings, I risk being T-boned coming out of our driveway in the mornings. It's like you finally have to say, I'm going for it, and let's hope they stop. Cause they're by the vet and they don't see that stop sign and they gun it. And I've asked for speed bumps as well, but they say because of snowplows, we can't have it. At any rate, that's the way it is. I am worried about the kids at the daycare. I'm worried about the kids at the bus stops because they sit at the end of the roads. The middle schoolers and high schoolers have to cross and walk. So those are my concerns. I think it's too much in a small space. I don't think it's safe. I initially thought it was a great idea to have a daycare, and then when I heard the scope of it, I got really concerned. That was really my issue. So if it's going to serve the neighborhood, which is in the bylines, I did a little math. Currently, if I did it properly, we currently have 2,128 spots for daycare in our town. Our elementary schools have room for 4,119 kids, so about 50%. The daycares in Greenfield Hill make up 14.9% of the daycare space. Dwight School makes up 5.63% of the elementary school population. If you combine it with Burr, it makes up about 13%. So we more than cover the need of Greenfield Hill. Greenfield Hill doesn't have the issue. It's the beach area. It's up by McKinley. Those are the areas that need the daycares more than our area. And actually the preschool at, what is it called? Harbor Light Preschool is currently advertising openings. So we do have room in our daycares. I went to the school in Branford and looked at drop off on May 22nd, and these are pictures I took. It was a shit show. So Branford, it's on Stony Creek Road. It's a drive-through road. There's a public school further up. This is an old school location. It has a clear entrance and exit. And there were ghost spots. There were people lined up. When we asked the Smalls at the community meeting, you can pass these around. what would people do? Because the people go in the parking lot and circle, in and out, till they could find a spot, if there wasn't a ghost spot open. And they said, oh, they'll circle the neighborhood.
Is that a copy of those?
Same thing, yep,
You can give it to Ms. Keel, please.
there you go. So it will be a disaster for our neighborhood, and I saw it right there, and that school is closest to the population of our school. So, and it was taken on May 22nd in the morning at drop off. And I was there again, in the middle of the day. And they have so few spots that all the spots are taken up by the teachers, and again, they're parked in ghost spots. I spoke with neighbors about the school, and you can look at their website. Their secret sauce is having people outside, all the kids outside all day, regardless of the weather. They're not inside, so they're outside for all weather. I just think it's a really bad idea. But that's it.
Thank you. Is there anybody online, Ms. Harrigan? Signed into the chat, or do we, is there anybody, a member of the public that is joining us remotely or by phone that wishes to be heard on this application? Any, just out of curiosity, any other member of the public in person wish to be heard on this application? Or you said,
I think we should process.
would you like to go in front of Attorney Green?
If you don't mind, just.
Sure, no problem.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Marcus and my husband Andy Wolf, and we're at 150 Hillside. So we are directly across the front door. Sorry, what is now the front door of the Chase Bank. We do have lots of concerns. Even with Chase, we had issues with lighting. We're concerned about the noise, we're concerned about the kids, we're concerned about the traffic, everything that everybody's been saying. It's true about the traffic. It's true about how unsafe it really is there. I love a daycare. I really don't think it's a fit there either. I'm really concerned about the kids in the corner. Maybe if the daycare was only in the back, I'd feel a little bit better about it. But right in the corner at the intersection, I think somebody made a really good point. If accidents happen, those kids can be traumatized. I mean, they're loud, they're upsetting, even for us as grownups when we go run out there and see if an ambulance needs to be called. So that happens on a regular basis there. And I don't know if everything is always documented. I don't really like the idea at all. But if it is something that you see is gonna go through, we would like to request better screening around the property, so it doesn't look so much like a daycare. I don't know if you have restrictions on how tall some of the structures that they use for playtime are allowed to be. I don't know what kind of lighting you allow on the outside after hours. Something to just make us feel like if it does go through, that our peaceful living there isn't compromised. Because we do enjoy living there and we do feel that it's a wonderful community. But if there's a lot of noise pollution, if there's a lot of light pollution, there's a lot more traffic, it takes away from our enjoyment that I think we're allowed to have. Amy?
Well, a couple of things that I don't think were touched upon, well, semi-touched upon. I mean, that traffic study is just laughable. They say that 110 people come through between 7 and 9 o'clock to a closed bank. I don't know how he comes up with these numbers. And when you say 70 people coming through the intersection between 7 and 9 in the morning, that's really 140 because they exit the property, they go right back through the intersection. And doing a traffic study in the middle of summer, that's laughable as well. Our police department has totally failed us. I've seen them there watching cars drive through. call, I say, you need to patrol this intersection, and they put a car in that parking. And people still aren't stopping. And they're not pulling these people over. So I don't know what they're up to. And another point is that they're not surrounded by all these businesses that he first started coming out to. This particular property, since there was a stockbroker on one side of them. So there's the art fair, the stockbroker, that's been turned to residential. So on 3.5 sides, it's residential. So they're barely surrounded by businesses there. It's just an odd shape of this business district. So I think we should probably let Joel talk.
There's just one more thing I wanted to say. If this does go through, I'm concerned about getting hit with some sort of fee for them bringing the sewer up on our property line. I know that's been an issue in the past for people. That when they bring the sewer up, you know what I'm talking about? That once it hits our property, we have to pay a certain percentage of it. For some reason, we get hit with some sort of fee, right? For doing that, and I really don't wanna pay for something that we don't even want or need. So if it goes through, that would just be another little kick
Oh,
for
and
us.
I'm sorry, one more thing, this playground that they're talking about, I mean, you guys should really go into this parking lot right now and sit there at 8 o'clock in the morning on September 15th. And just take a look at what happens to this thing. But one of those accidents ended up in that parking lot. Playground, doesn't sound very safe.
It's concerning, so we'll hand it over to the lawyer. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, staff. My name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport with the law offices of Green Gross. It's my pleasure to appear before you this evening on behalf of Ally and Stuart Cagle, Ariana and Charles Demora, and Zach Clavana, and you've heard from some of these folks. They all own property that is directly across the street from this corner, from this property at 161 Hillside. I've heard from a lot of people over the last several weeks. You see, everyone who has shown up for this hearing this evening, and I note that there's quite a bit of interest and letters that have been submitted. No one is opposed to the daycare or day nursery business. And indeed, there may be a need for day nurseries in Fairfield, and there apparently is. I'm sort of past that point, my trajectory with my family, but I read a lot about it. But that really has nothing to do with this application directly, which, as many of you have pointed out, and as the public has pointed out, is whether this property is the appropriate site for that use. And my clients, and I think most people here would agree, most people here who live in this neighborhood design business district that was established to benefit them with, again, necessary and convenient uses. All of them believe that if you understand sort of this property, the traffic pattern, the intense volume of traffic that this site receives, and the close proximity of all these residential uses, that in the fair exercise of the jurisdiction of this commission under the regulations and applying those regulations, that you'll deny this application. Everyone here is, and I know you keep hearing it, and it is the traffic first and foremost. And I have remarked about this endlessly. 2024 is the year of traffic, and I don't know exactly what has tripped in this region, but getting anywhere has gotten to be difficult. And we all see it. We see it everywhere. We see it on the Merritt Parkway. We see it on I-95. We see it on Route 1. And because all of those routes are so overburdened right now, this site is right on the route down the middle. And I know you've seen a lot and read a lot about this site because you had the veterinarian on the opposite corner, and I know you've heard a lot of the same information about this intersection. A couple of comments, and I'm gonna try to move this along as I promised Mr. Wendt, but I've got a comment on a few things that were said. One, this is not a comparison between the former bank use and this use. So it's not an either or. It's not a comparison between this use and other potential uses. Because we all know that any use in a neighborhood design business district will come before this commission, and you will review it under the regulations and do the right thing with respect to any of these potential uses. So when I hear the applicant talk about, well, this could become a restaurant, or this could become some other use that's more intense. Well, no, it will come before you, and again, you'll review it and you'll act accordingly. And if it does become that, it's because you've applied the standards and it's the appropriate use. But this is not that. The bank use. The bank has been closed for a long time. I don't know about you. I don't know how often any of you go to the bank anymore, but the bank business has changed. Now, the 11th version of the ITE that the applicant is relying on was published in 2021. The 10th version was published in 2017. The 9th version was published in 2012. I will bet anyone a nickel that when the next edition of ITE comes out in 2025 or 2026, the numbers for bank uses will be down dramatically because the world has changed through COVID and it's changed through technology. And we're all tapping, and the amount of cash that you carry in your ordinary life these days versus 5 years ago and 10 years ago, and the way we all do business has changed dramatically. So we don't go to banks anymore. I mean, clearly in our business, we have to, but personal banking, it doesn't happen unless you have some special needs. I don't think that's a fair comparison. This notion about the traffic study with, looking at the bank use and how many more trips per day. When you look at stormwater, you look at the 100-year storm, you don't look at the steady drizzle. It's that surge of capacity. It is the peak hour in the morning in particular that makes it impossible for my clients to get out of their driveways. And you heard from the neighboring property owners behind the bank, they can't get in and out of their driveway. You can't walk there. Another comment I wanted to pick up on is the notion of sidewalks. The entire neighborhood design business district should be walkable and should be connected with sidewalks. You should be able to walk from whatever use ends up at 161 Hillside Road all the way down through the neighborhood design business district. It should be a place where people can go, people can walk, people can interact, and the properties should interconnect. So the problem with this plan, the overview problem with this plan is one, my clients and their neighbors have no confidence that the plan that has been proposed will work, this stagger plan, because life just doesn't go that way. And you cannot, a lot of times things happen and people can't meet schedules. And in particular, people moving young children, bringing young children in and out cannot always reliably be on a schedule. And I don't know what this school says to someone who's paying whatever I heard tonight, $3,000 or $4,000 a month to bring your child to the school if you arrive 15 minutes late or 10 minutes early. Really? I mean, you're not going to close the door to them. So my clients have no confidence in the school's ability to enforce that. It's a creative solution. And I also have to acknowledge this. We did meet with the school and we appreciate the good work that they do. And we appreciate the good product that they may have. We appreciate the adjustments that they made. But the big problem with this plan, and the thing that this commission, I think, has to bear in mind as you consider this application is under this special exception, there are sort of hard standards that you have to find. Setbacks, sort of parking spaces in general, although I know there's no direct classification on this. So there's sort of hard zoning standards. But in this case, there's also soft standards, so-called soft standards that deal with impacts on neighboring properties, character, traffic, those sorts of things. And the problem with this application is that there's zero room for error. And as the commission looks at this and again exercises your discretion that you have on certain of the findings you have to make, you have to bear in mind that you cannot, if this fails at all, if a car is stopped in that entryway and another car arrives and is backed up in that entryway, then the east flow of traffic on Hill Farm Road is stopped at that moment. Or, and if it's in the morning hour, someone has to go into the other lane of traffic to go around that stoppage. And that is significant. So there's no room for error with this application. So another few principles that I wanted to just throw on the table is, first of all, and this hasn't been mentioned, but in a neighborhood design business district, you can't, for example, have off-site parking as an offering, for example, for staff and that sort of thing. And the other thing is, under the zoning regulations, there's no allowance of shared parking arrangements in a neighborhood design business district. So this site rises and falls on its own. I think this would be a good moment. My clients had retained recently Simcoe traffic consultants, and I note that Michael Monteleone is online, and I think I'd like to get his report into the record this evening and get his comments into the record. So what I'd like to do is introduce Mr. Monteleone. I apologize that you only received his report, if you've received it. It was, I sent it by email. I received it. My client received it this afternoon, and
It's in the web link.
Web link, okay. And you know, I get that, and I understand that. I understand that we filed a report at 4 o'clock on the day of the hearing, and that is a problem for this commission. However, my clients had met with their neighbors. My clients had considered some discussions with the applicant. And so there were delays, and plus they are meeting with a larger neighborhood group. So it becomes cumbersome making decisions and retaining consultants. And once again, I will have Mr. Monteleone review his findings. He also submitted his resume. So what I'd like to do is have Mr. Monteleone come online and first briefly present his education, training, and experience just for the record, even though his resume is.
Attorney Fallon, you got this late. I'm sure you didn't get a chance to review.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's 9:45 and so, you know, I can't.
You're not gonna be in
I'm not
position
gonna
to
finish.
respond.
You know, the only thing I will say.
Which is fine. That's fine. We don't need to.
The only thing I will say, and is just as a point of procedure in the future, and I address this to the commission respectfully and to my colleague, Mr. Green.
Well, listen, if it has to do with late submissions, it is what it is. It's not ideal by any stretch, but should even a neighbor come in with a consultant, there's very little we can do. After hearing it, I'm assuming you're not gonna wanna rebut because you're gonna have time to review the report.
Well, I'm gonna need time to rebut anyway, so
Exactly.
that will give me time to.
Which is fine. I mean, that's just good for my own knowledge as to what to do with timing and curfews and stuff, but let's move on with what, with Mr. Monteleone.
Yeah.
Did I say it right?
Monteleone. So I think he's,
He is on. I don't know if he needs to know that he needs to press *6. Is it the same? To unmute? He has not unmuted himself right now.
Yeah. Is he on, we think he's on phone. Mr. Monteleone, if you can hear me, we can't hear you. We believe you're muted.
Got it, okay, how's that?
Here we are.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, I'm Michael Monteleone. I'm the Senior Vice President with Simcoe Engineering. We're a transportation engineering firm. My office is located at 104 West 40th Street, Suite 433, New York, New York 10018. And what I'd like to discuss with all of you tonight is parking and the situation at the proposed daycare center, child care center. So the child care center is proposed to have 72 students, 15 staff, and 28 parking spaces, 2 of which are ADA spaces. They're set-asides. The site plan was amended as a one-way entrance driveway from Hill Farm Road and a one-way exit driveway to Hillside Road. As a result, on-site traffic flow will be in a counterclockwise direction, in one-way counterclockwise direction. A total of 21 of the spaces, 2 of which are ADA, will be provided on the west side of the building, and the remaining 7 spaces will be separated from the other spaces behind the building to the south. According to the parking generation manual that's published by IT, which is a sister publication to the trip generation manual, a total of 25 spaces would need to be proposed for a child care center for 72 students. Although 28 spaces are proposed by the applicant, this may not be enough to safely accommodate the AM peak period drop-off activities of the proposed child care center. So what we did is we did a spreadsheet exercise where we conducted a minute-by-minute on-site parking accumulation calculation between 7:15 and 9:15 based upon the following assumptions. The 15 staff will all park on site. Each student drop-off would take 15 minutes to complete, which is the same assumption used by the applicant. We assume that uniform arrivals and departures of vehicles would be used throughout the each 15-minute period of the 2-hour period that we analyzed. So no more than 1 arrival or departure during any individual 1-minute interval. We tried to make this as conservative as possible. Only the 26 unrestricted spaces were used in the calculations. And the reason for this is because there's no guarantee that the ADA spaces would be used at any particular time throughout this period. If they go unused, then you can't take credit for those spaces. Okay, the arrival schedule of the students and the staff by 15-minute period, as presented by the applicant, was used in our analysis. So we used exactly the same matrix that they provided to you earlier. And then the following results were as follows. If we look specifically at the time period, the 20 minutes between 8:20 a.m. and 8:40 p.m., there's very few unoccupied spaces that remain. For the most part, within the heart of that time period, you either have 2, 1, or 0 spaces available. And that's assuming that you're not having any type of peaking of people, 5 people coming at within the same minute. None of that. If it's just spread out evenly throughout, you still have a very, very fine line between having enough spaces and not having enough spaces. So basically, what we've learned is from doing this a desktop exercise is that the proposed parking operations for this site are very fragile. The parking lot is projected to be at or near capacity, as I mentioned, during the busiest time. The slightest variation in arrival times, even by a few minutes, would elevate the site above its parking capacity, as demonstrated by the following. The arrival schedule of students and staff in 15-minute periods, as presented by the applicant, is a best guess and could be significantly different once people are registered into the school. The length of stay for certain student drop-offs could exceed the assumed 15 minutes. A minor shift in the arrival times of students could create simultaneous arrivals instead of the uniform separate arrivals, which we did use and departures would be used in the parking accumulation calculations. This pattern would be more realistic in practice. Another issue with the parking lot is that the 7 spaces in the back of the site cannot be seen from the front of the site. If vehicles turn the blind corner to park in one of these spaces and all are occupied, it will cause unnecessary travel from the site and back through the Hill Farm Road and Hillside Road intersection to return back to the site. In conclusion, variations in the arrivals of staff and students could create deficits in parking supply and cause queuing out into Hill Farm Road. These efficiencies would create and constitute dangerous and unsafe conditions because of the proposed development.
Mr. Monteleone, can you just for the record, briefly describe your education, training, and experience, just so that we have that in the record?
Sure. I have 37 years of experience performing traffic analysis, parking analysis, traffic safety analysis. I have a master's degree from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I'm also a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners.
And Mr. Monteleone, are you a licensed traffic engineer in the state of Connecticut?
I am not, but the president of our company who oversees all of my work is.
And did he sign your report and the findings that you had in your?
He did, yes.
And in your professional opinion, does this site present adequate drop-off and queuing opportunities?
I don't believe that it does. I think that that it really pushes the envelope in terms of capacity for doing these type of maneuvers, for the pickup and drop off, for safely storing vehicles, waiting to park in available spaces. There's a lot of spaces that are already occupied by the staff who work there, and as the morning progresses, it gets worse and worse because more of those available spaces are taken by the persons that work there.
And what is the effect of heavy snowfall, plowing, or heavy rain on utilization of a parking lot that is so tight?
Snowfall can be a real problem because of where you're going to put the snow when you plow the spaces, because you get any kind of an appreciable snowfall like 6 inches or more, you're going to have to put that snow within the parameter of the parking lot itself. So you're going to lose quite a few spaces during those events.
Okay. Ms. Harrigan, can you call up page 9 of the revised plan package that was submitted by the applicant?
Can you describe the sheet, please?
It's I have a. It's the turning radius drawing.
Okay.
I have copies for.
That's on the.
I think it's the very last sheet.
So it's page 9 of the revised package. There it is.
It's the last sheet in the hard copy handout that you were previously.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Monteleone, I had emailed you this document as well, but you can probably see it on your screen.
Yes, I see it.
And you can see, referring to the path of that vehicle, can you describe, can you just describe for the commission what that drawing represents?
Sure, it's a turning radius map to get vehicles into the site using AutoTurn, which is a component of AutoCAD software, and it's for an SU-30 a single unit truck to get in and into the site.
Is that, for example, what is an SU-30 truck typically?
It's like a box truck. It's four axle, two axle, four tires.
Okay, now, in particular, if we can get to the drawing that shows the lower drawing that shows the egress from the site. Mr. Monteleone, are you able to see that?
Yep.
Now, I note that this SU-30 vehicle, and you can see the design, it appears that those lines are actually the path of the tires of the vehicle.
That's correct.
And I note that the tires of the vehicle, and actually in both drawings, but in particular, I was struck by the bottom drawing. You can see the curb where the sidewalk is, the eastern curb of those two northern parking spaces, and then as the truck turns to the right, and in order to avoid driving into the oncoming lane of traffic, it takes a pretty tight turn there. But I note that the tires appear in each instance to touch the curbs, each of the curbs. Do you see that?
Yeah, there's very little room to maneuver the vehicle through there.
So
It's very, very tight.
So that situation would work if every single driver who ever enters that site executes an absolutely perfect turn. Is that correct?
For the vehicle of this size, yes. A personal vehicle, a car is a little bit smaller and has a little bit more wiggle room than the truck. But yeah, in this case, the truck would have to go all the way to the left when leaving the site to get out safely onto Hillside Road, which is not a normal maneuver. People tend to stay in the middle of the lane and not go so far right to be able to make that turn.
Now, in your professional experience, is that a appropriate and reasonable design for egress from this site?
I mean, there's two answers to this. It's physically, does it work? Yes, you check off the box. It works because you can get it to meander through here. Is it practical? No. It's trying to do something that is not normal behavior. The truck would not go all the way up against the curb to the far left to make a right turn.
So it's not a realistic expectation that every truck is going to follow.
No.
All right. I don't have any further questions for Mr. Monteleone. I don't know if the commission has questions for him.
Questions for Mr. Monteleone?
Yes, sir.
I have a question.
Let me start with Commissioner Siebert, Harrison, and Braun.
Just a quick question. Factored in absentee rates. What is the absentee rate of this school? Does that factor into the daily volume that comes in?
It could. They have a license for 72 students. Does that mean that they can only have 72 registered at any time, regardless of what day they show up? I don't know the law in Connecticut as to what 72 students means. If you can have no more than 72 on any particular day, or only 72 registered. Again, that's a state law that I do not know the answer to.
Understood. Thank you.
Harrison.
I had a question, I don't know if it's for you, Mr. Chairman, but it's 10 o'clock. We did get here a little late. I don't think most of us, I didn't have time to review it. Would it be appropriate if we could have the engineer come back once we digest that study again? I mean, obviously it would be up to you, but
That's fine.
I just want to be fair to.
If that's the thought the commission has, that's fine. We're up against the time. Part of me wanted to see if we can get through public comments, but we are up against our time limit and we're gonna be coming back anyways, so. Why don't we see what, I didn't get a chance to review it either, so I mean, that's fine, I guess. Commissioner Braun, why don't you ask your question? Give me a chance to think.
2 questions real quick.
and the sightline analysis, it looks like they have ample sightline, but I noticed they didn't do, I don't think they did a speed study. I think they just took the speed limit and added 10 miles an hour. But then I thought I heard neighbors saying people go up to 50 miles an hour on that road by the time they get the 100 feet down the road to this location of the entranceway. So when you're doing a study, and the same question I would be posing to Attorney Fallon's expert, but since you're here, would you normally do a speed study or would you just rely on that? Is that adequate if in reality the speeds are much faster? And how much would that change the sight line if like the average speed is 40 miles an hour, you know? And then the second question is, this has a chef and a sous chef and farm to table food service. I don't know what that means. I don't know how often trucks come to deliver that. I don't know where they're coming from. I don't think we have any farms in Fairfield. So does that alter anything? I don't know what size the trucks are, how often they come. With that, I would assume they would not allow them to come during the staggered entryway entrance in the morning. I guess I have a third question. I didn't see anything in there about a staggered exit at 6:30 at night. I don't know if that matters. Those are my three questions. If you could address those either now or next time.
So on the truck issue, the applicant did not provide anything on that to after I reviewed the
Ask that,
application.
the applicant, yep.
But the other thing is the commission under section 28 of the regulations, as I understand it, there's no loading space proposed on the site. And that's something I believe that's within the commission's discretion as to whether a loading space should be required to accommodate a truck making a delivery at this site. And obviously, commission is sensitive to the fact that this site features a crossing of a driveway to get to one of the play yards. Bear that in mind in sort of determining what this site might require.
And then the speed, does that matter if the actual speeds are faster than 25 miles an hour plus 10, which is obviously something that's acceptable when you're doing a sightline analysis, but should it, if the actual speeds are.
Why don't we revisit that at the next meeting?
Okay.
Hearing where we are. Attorney Green, how much more time do you think you have, absent our, any further questions from us?
I have about.
All right, yeah, we're definitely, okay, that answers that. Attorney Russo, you're here on your own behalf or you have clients?
No client.
That's fine. At the very least, you've got those two. Any member of the public wishes to submit information to us by email, like I said, we review those. So I will adjourn the hearing. I will leave the meeting open for the public comment portion. Start with Attorney Green and Mr. Monteleone. Russo will be next. If any member of the public has already spoken, I'd prefer not to be duplicative. If anything else, please submit it by email. That would be easier for us, but I'm not gonna go crazy preventing people. It's just, we will have another hearing and another matters next time. Oh, sorry. The next meeting will be 2 weeks from today, the fourth Tuesday of August, which is, thank you very much. So I will adjourn the hearing. This application remains open and in public. Thank you, everyone.